into order. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Percival,
Here.
Ms. Ricard,
Here.
Mr. Farouk,
Here.
Mr. Hedgepeth,
Here.
Ms. Rizzi.
Here.
Dr. Harris Muhammad,
Present.
Ms. Burke,
Here.
Mr. Jafari, Ms. Fernandez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence led by Mr. Jafari.
Mr. Jafari, would you please pick up your microphone and keep it on while you say the pledge? Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we'll have our translation services announcement.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Language Justice Team, we welcome you. If you need interpretation from English to Spanish, please come see me. I will be at the table in the back with the interpreters. We have interpretation headsets for anyone that needs one. Interpretation in Spanish is also available for those watching this meeting through Zoom. I will now make the same announcement in Spanish. Buenas noches a todos y bienvenidos por parte del equipo de Justicia Lingüística. Si usted necesita interpretación del inglés al español, por favor diríjase a la mesa de atrás donde estaré yo con los intérpretes. Yo les puedo dar audífonos para que puedan escuchar la reunión de la Junta Escolar en español. También la interpretación está disponible para los que están viendo la reunión a través de Zoom. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. And before we move forward with the adoption of the agenda, I believe there are two amendments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to amend the agenda to include item 4.05, receive for first read, Fit for Kids, Safe Routes to School Resolution, and include item 3.07, receive for first read, resolution for annual maintenance plan, and adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Percival and seconded by Mr. Hedgepeth. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Percival,
Yes.
Ms. Ricard,
Yes.
Mr. Farouk,
Yes.
Mr. Hedgepeth,
Yes.
Ms. Rizzi,
Yes.
Dr. Harris Muhammad,
Yes.
Ms. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Jafari, Ms. Fernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, just want to make an announcement. The resolution for Fit for Kids will be under, the document will be under 4.01. May I ask where the resolution for the annual maintenance plan will be housed so people can follow along?
We have copies of that in the room right now,
Okay.
and I will have to determine a spot, and I will let you know shortly
Okay.
where that's most appropriate.
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, with that being said, moving right along to Dreams for RPS update, receive an update on RPS strategic plan. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Luke Hostetter, the Director of Enrollment Placement and Planning. I have my colleague Melissa Tracy, Manager of Enrollment Placement and Planning. And we are thrilled to share an update tonight on Dreams for RPS, specifically around our implementation and progress monitoring plan. As with every Dreams for RPS update that we will share, have shared, and will share around progress monitoring and implementation, we want to start with a reminder of our values and principles for the work. And of particular note tonight, we want to talk about transparency. We're excited to be sharing our action profiles this evening, and in particular, the measures of success for each one that will allow, of course, yourself on the school board and the public insights into how we're doing and where we aim to go with the work. Melissa will share more about those measures of success in a moment. In a previous update to you all, we shared that each action within each priority will have an accompanying profile. This profile is a high-level overview of the work of each action for the public to understand why are we doing the thing and how are we going to accomplish whatever each action is. Each action is going to be guided by a project plan that will keep us organized and allow us to promote more streamlined progress monitoring, both internally and externally. We're excited to share that all of these monitoring structures, save a couple that are still in development, are underway. We're in the midst of building our schedule of action-specific and Dreams for RPS Top 10 goal aligned updates to you all on the school board for the next 12 months. So we'll be sharing those strategically as it aligns to the season wherever the work is. We're having our first quarterly update meeting of this school year with the leadership team in October, and are excited to be doing that in a single day format. So we'll be able to share all of our progress around each action with the leadership team in a cross-collaborative format. And then action leads continue their weekly and monthly check-ins and updates, both with members of their own priority. They have priority meetings each month, and then are working cross-collaboratively in other ways as well. Since the last time we shared an update, we've launched this plan. Action leads attended workshops to both craft the profiles that you see in the following slides and worked on project plans, which are underway, though I think it's fair to say those will never be fully finished, as they're organic living documents that will adjust as the work continues to evolve. We're eager to hear your feedback on the profiles and are currently working on setting targets for each of the actions measures of success, which Melissa will share more about later. We continue working on those project plans, as I said. They're living, breathing documents, and working on more and evolving the cross-collaborative ways that we're working with one another on this work. While the final bullet says that the implementation of all project plans is next up, it's fair to say that implementation is in full swing. It's just that some strategies and actions haven't taken effect yet, as you know, there's a sequence to some things, but all of the actions across the plan have begun in terms of the implementation work. I'm gonna turn it over to Melissa, who's gonna provide an overview of the layout of the action profiles, which in the following slides are organized across each of the priorities, as we can see in this table here.
Thank you. So what you'll see over the next 25 slides is the high-level planning information for each Dreams for RPS action. We won't walk through each individual action because that would take a while, but I want to share more about the categories of information included on those slides. Before I do that, I do want to say thank you to all of the action leads who have been working really diligently over the last few months on all of this and all of the other planning documents that we have for Dreams for RPS. At the top of each of the action slides, you'll see the number, the name, and the description of the action, and immediately below that, you'll see the why, which further identifies why the action is important and what we hope to achieve. The measures of success are the 2 to 3 implementation metrics that we'll be tracking and reporting on over the next 5 years. This is a new structure that we've added for this strategic plan compared to the last plan, and we're excited to be able to quantify our progress for each action in addition to the top 10 goals for Dreams for RPS. You'll see here on this slide our principles for those measures of success, namely that they're quantitative, they're outcome-oriented, and they're based on existing data sources as much as possible. Additionally, where feasible, we've aligned the measures of success to the top 10 goals, but this new structure also allows us to include measures uniquely specific to the action and its strategy. What you won't see here just yet is the data itself. As Luke shared, we're currently in the process of calculating baseline data and setting both 5-year and annual targets for each action measure of success, and we'll be excited to share an update on that in the near future. We also know that there's a lot of data that we could be tracking for each of these actions, and we can't track it all, but we are going to be tracking and reporting on these top measures for each action, and depending on when that data is available, it'll be either quarterly or annually. So for example, we can track SOL scores or satisfaction survey data annually, but we can track things like the teacher vacancy rate or chronic absenteeism each quarter. Finally, at the bottom of each slide, you'll see the implementation strategies, which detail how we'll implement the action. Most of these strategies were also approved by the school board in October with some slight tweaks to the language. Using this information, we've mapped out implementation milestones or benchmarks for the next 5 school years. We did this by thinking strategically about the stages of implementation and what tasks we aim to accomplish each year. These milestones are also then what we use to create those detailed project plans, in which we identify the specific tasks, target completion dates, individuals responsible, collaborators, and completion status. In our standing progress monitoring meetings, both monthly and quarterly, we're reviewing these project plans to help keep us on track with those tasks that we've outlined for each strategy. What we've already noticed and are excited about in the creation of these project plans is the many opportunities that exist for connection and collaboration across the actions. So for example, 1.2 with 4.3 and 5.1, and 3.1 and 3.5. We're really excited that our monitoring structures provide us with both time and space for folks across offices and departments to collaborate as we continue moving this work forward. Again, I'm not going to review each individual slide, so I'm going to jump to the end. So as we continue implementation of each of the Dreams for RPS actions, we'll be sharing updates with the school board and with the public. Each quarter, we'll share an update on the implementation status for each action, and we're collaborating with the communications department on website updates so that we can also share information through that avenue as well. Additionally, each month, we'll highlight one action for the school board to provide a more in-depth update on our progress. And as a quick preview for the next couple of months, in October, we'll share more information about Action 2.1, which is 0 teacher vacancies. In November, we'll share more information about Action 5.1, which is the facilities master plan. And then in December, we'll share more information about either Action 3.1, student mental health, or 3.2, trauma responsiveness. And at this point, we'd love to hear your feedback, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the process itself or any of the specific action profiles.
Ms. Berg?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both so much for this extensive report. I'm glad to see that it's in writing in terms of being, I can barely see the print, the color of the print. Maybe you all are the only ones, but I do see it. Outcome oriented, and I also look forward to receiving the data as you shared. So thank you so very much. If it's here before me, I haven't read it. So my question is, you stated a schedule per se as to what's going to be expected to be reported each month, but I didn't hear anything regarding, you said mental health. I'm going back to the reading piece, the academic piece. Did you state what month?
So we haven't fully scheduled the monthly updates for each action, and I think would defer to the superintendent and leadership around when would be most timely. But the way we are thinking about scheduling is we want to make sure that every action gets an opportunity to share before we overlap in most cases, and then aligning the presentations to when makes sense based on data availability or other things. And Superintendent Cameras, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will be reporting out on SOLs and graduation at our next board meeting. So we will go deep into all of the academics.
Follow up? Thank you so much. Let's keep the main thing, and that is student outcomes. So that's our driving force. Yes, we need to hear all the other mental health in particular, but my main thing is because once we get behind, academically, it's hard to catch up. So the more we hear that data in terms of, I just want to see us keep it flowing as it is and not go backwards, because that can happen. But if it's before us, we inspect what we expect. So I look forward to seeing that data on reading, math, the whole gamut. So thank you so much for that. And I'm looking forward to the next meeting.
Mr. Hedgepath?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for this report. I'll concur with my colleague, Ms. Burke. I do have a question about page 12, which is the Action 2.1, 0 teacher vacancies. The last strategy says that we're going to focus on targeting experienced teachers and reducing the new to teaching hires. I would just be curious as the justification to that, because I think that there might be some real rich opportunities and a balance of having experienced educators and also brand new to the profession.
Thank you for that question. What we'll be doing, and we have someone taking notes, I think that's something we'd love for the 2.1 action lead to speak to more in depth and share a little more about the strategy behind that. So thank you, and we'll certainly circle back on it. Thank you.
Ms. Rizzi, and then Dr. Harris Muhammad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of small questions, or like, not too involved. You talked about how this would at some point be correlated with Dreams for RPS, or will it be, like, will we be able to, I mean, I know that you have it, listed by, the categories, but like, I mean, are we going to see the two side by side and see how like they correlate at some point?
And to clarify, do you mean like making sure that we're aligning the goals
Yes, the
themselves too?
goals,
Yeah,
yes.
perfect. Yeah, I think there'll be, we haven't fully designed yet or fleshed out all the designs for how we'll advertise this or speak to it rather on the website, but I think making sure there is a clear through line for folks to understand, for this goal, if we think about Goal 7 enrollment, what are the actions that might inform that or are connected to it in some way? So I think there's things to figure out there, but it's a great point of making sure we see those connections. And then Melissa, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about how the measures of success, not all instances, but are very aligned with those goals as well.
So for example, for action 1.3 and 1.4 about special education and our multilingual learners, they each include the reading SOL rate for special education students and multilingual learners. So we have that kind of direct connection to our top 10 goals, but we can certainly make that more explicit in the information to see where it's a top 10 goal, but a subgroup of that top 10 goal.
Yeah, maybe some kind of graphic that would help us see that. That's great. And then under 5.1 facilities, I know just in the vacant property committee meetings, at least, Mr. Hathaway had shared that he was going to share his facilities plan in October. Will we now be having that in November? Because you did mention that you would go over this in November. So, I just want to know how that will kind of work with whatever it is that Mr. Hathaway is working on and make sure that they are aligned too. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. I think right now I don't want to say set in stone schedule, but the tentative schedule would be we would share that update in November because we'll have a little more substantive work done on the facilities master plan so we can share a more robust update in November. But Melissa and I work closely with Mr. Hathaway actually on that, so we'll connect with him and make sure that we're not duplicating efforts.
Yes.
And are aligned.
That's great. Thank you.
We have Dr. Harris Muhammad and then Mr. Jafari.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions for actions 2.1 and 2.2. Is there data available, and if so, can the school board have it, that describes how many teachers and administrators received a local license to remain in Richmond Public Schools? I think we need to tell the whole story. So if we're looking at decreasing teacher vacancies, how many of those vacancies did we decrease by using the local license process? That's important. And it is also valued because many of our teachers are not aware that they have that track, but then some are for some reason. So what is that lack of communication about coming from the licensure office? Because that's where it starts first. Some administrators are not aware that that is an option, that teachers who struggle to pass the praxis, they're not aware that they only need to take it once in order to request a local license. And so there is some miscommunication, and that communication is not filtering through all of our buildings. So there is an equity gap in terms of retaining teachers and the ability to apply for a local license. 2, what does the current data describe? Describe how many teachers of color are hired and retained in RPS. I know that is a push for our diversity, men of color. So what does that look like? What are we doing? Because I've met many men of color that have applied to RPS and they have not been hired by RPS and they're fully credentialed. I've met several men of color over the summer that are social workers, that have a behavior specialist background, that have a math and science background. I met several Black men the day of the back to school rally / Summerfest that have a special education background and they have a master's. So I just want to know, what does that look like? And do we have the data to say, since we've had a focus on RVA men to teach, what does that look like? What does that track look like? And then my last question under facilities 5.1, and this is not a question, it's more of a comment. Since you all are working with Mr. Hathaway or have worked to create or add or revise a facilities plan, I just would like to see that you all continue to work with the facilities committee and, you know, to move some things, because one of the things that I know I've heard in the past as a school board member is that doing the double work, when you have one entity over here working on something, a policy, a resolution to address what we're hearing in the media or in the community, but then we're not working with the committee that is also directly working on that. It's just bring it together so everybody can work together and hear, because I'm sure language is being duplicated when you're talking about facilities. So just bring that work together so we can have a transparent, the word that's in this document, a transparent process on addressing the same needs. So thank you so much for this work.
And thank you for that last comment. And then regarding the 2.1 questions, I think those are great questions to tee up to our colleagues in the talent office and have be explored in their action update.
And so to just close out on that,
30 seconds.
2.1, number one, is critically important. It is clear that they only need to take the practice once. And if they have not been successful and they request, whatever our process is, we have to have a process. Whatever that process is, I think also it's clear that we need a policy to match that process, because everyone is not aware that if they're not successful, what is the route? We just lose them. They go to another division, they get a full contract, and they request a local license. So why aren't we articulating that information? That's not for you to answer, but I'm just putting that out there. So when.
Thank you, Dr. Harris.
Mhm.
That's time.
Thank you.
Mr. Jafari?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm certain that we're going to circle back, and I know I will as I do a deep dive into some of the other material here, but I do want to commend you for what you put together. I want to go to slide 3.5, the action 3.5, and where we speak to BHSL and athletics. And as I look at the whys, as we try to move forward and grasp as much as we can with that, I want to make sure that we're also looking at the importance of introduction in middle school, which I'm glad to see that this is focusing on. But as we move forward, I don't want us to leave out that athletics, scholastic athletics, is the gateway for many youngsters to actually get scholarships, tuition, and that kind of, and that's a very critical kind of thing here, particularly in our inner cities and our marginalized communities. So I do want to make sure that we are reaching out. Also don't want to leave out the fact that participation in athletics at a very early age gives them command and self-confidence about their bodies and keeping in shape, and that will help us also on the health end. So there are other aspects that I want to make sure that we're also bringing out when we're talking about scholastic activities. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Ricard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for this work. I think the transparency is really important, and I think your measures of success, I love that they're based in data. My question kind of with the transparency is, there's so many action items, and of course, you're going to be getting data for them at all different times during the year. So in an effort to continue to be transparent with the community about the data, what are your thoughts on how often you'll update the data? How will that be communicated out? Will it be in a spreadsheet? Will it be in a document like this? And I know you might still be thinking that through.
We're definitely still thinking about what the design of the website is going to look like and the best way to share the information and have it be very clear and organized and easy for the public to understand. What we're hoping to do is that for whatever we can track quarterly is to be able to publish that data quarterly, and then the things that we can only report on once a year, that when we have that data available, that we make that data available through the website as well.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is one thing I forgot to ask, and I know that you will provide more information later, but this is a question I get quite frequently from constituents. With the high school refresh and the new themes, will there be opportunities for students to, I guess, move? Like, are we moving to some kind of open enrollment high school model? I mean, there have been some questions that are in support of it, and there have been some people who've been a little concerned about it. So will we get more information about how that will work?
In short, yes, and excited to share more about Passion for Learning and be soon rolling out more engagement opportunities for members of the community to share their thoughts and feedback about that effort. So yes, thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Percival.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question. Measures of success and implementation strategies are tied to each other. Some of these categories and measures of success are probably a little bit more intuitive than others. An SOL score is an SOL score. Some might be a little more esoteric. They may change over time. Do we have a method for change management where we'll track that so that we're not moving goalposts and we'll know when we've changed that, why we've changed that?
Thank you so much for that question. One of the things that the action leads have been working on is business rules for each of the measures of success so that we can internally document what's the data source, what exact formula are we using to calculate that measure, and have a way to track if there have been changes to the business rules. And if that's something to happen where for some reason we need to change how we calculate it, we'll make sure to publish that information wherever we're publishing the measures of success themselves.
Mr. Farouk.
Just a quick comment that I am so excited that we are doing this. As someone who's worked in public health for a long time and always goes over data, it's not just exciting to have data. What's exciting is that on a regular basis, we're going to be wrestling with it. And there are ways in which the data will make things clearer for us, and there are ways in which the data will not. But just this effort that you all have done to take the awesome responsibility of educating our kids and giving us a framework with which to sort of wrestle with it about how well we are or aren't doing. There's so many conversations I have with constituents, with parents, with stakeholders, where without a good framework to talk about how well we're doing, it devolves into each of us just sharing our pet peeves. And I really appreciate that this gives that discussion some direction, somewhere to really focus. So really, really excited about this and looking forward to continuing this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. So most of my questions were already answered. I am really excited about the format, and I'm really looking forward to the execution of all things Dreams for RPS and the strategic planning process. I did have a couple of folks from the community ask about, we'll go to page 20, where we talk about the food. They'd like to know, they were assured that the next part of this process was that they would be able to choose between the different vendors. Can you just bring some light into where we are with that process? Because they're really excited to get the new menu underway and just want to get a better understanding of that. And so I was accosted by a couple of people with regard to that. Thank you.
If I may, if I may, Madam Chair, I do want to clarify that as talented and accomplished Mr. Hostetler and Ms. Tracy are, they actually aren't the ones who do all the programming here. They're organizing all the information to report it out. And so I don't want to put Ms. Parks on the spot, but I will say that the top items that the students had selected are incorporated into the menus for this current school year. But we can do a follow-up and an upcoming care and safety update about where those things stand. Yes, Ms. Sparks? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Moving right along to board business. 3.01, receive an update on options for Clark Springs Elementary School. Mr. Cameras.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as we discussed several weeks ago, there are a number of very interesting, exciting possibilities for the future of Clark Springs Elementary. I hate to be the bearer of somewhat challenging news, but the long and short of it is the facility needs a new HVAC system. And any programming that we were to put in that facility that involved large numbers of students or staff, quite frankly, would necessitate us taking that step before we did so. As you may recall, those of you who were on the board earlier know that we had some issues during the winter with Clark Springs when kids were there. Ms. Ricard likely remembers that in particular. And that's all related to the HVAC system. All that to say, it will cost about $3 to $4 million to make that upgrade, in part because it would also require some asbestos abatement if we were to go in and replace the pipes. Given that we do not have a surplus of school maintenance funds, I cannot in good conscience recommend to the board that we spend $4 million on a facility that does not currently have students and staff. And so my recommendation to you, you're not voting tonight, but just for your consideration, is that we in essence hold the building in abeyance, mostly mothball it, while we continue to identify funding sources for construction, and while we potentially explore the nascent public-private partnership ideas that were floated. There's no harm in exploring them, and if that could lead to some work on an earlier time frame, fantastic. Obviously, the devil is always in the details on those things. We also think, and this isn't explicitly stated in the presentation, but I did want to note, we likely could use a very small portion of the facility for some of the wellness uses that Ms. Parks had described before, food pantry, a couple of other things. In a smaller space, we could probably manage the HVAC concerns until a larger rehab was able to be done. So in short, my recommendation is that we, for the most part, in essence, mothball the building, pursue public-private partnership options, see what's possible, bring that back to the board for consideration, continue to advocate for the additional maintenance funding to eventually take care of the HVAC system, and try to do our best to reserve a small bit of space for some of the wellness center activities, including the food pantry and other services that Ms. Parks had outlined before. With that, I'll pause and happy to take any questions.
No questions? Ms. Rizzi?
Chair, as I have discussed with Mr. Cameras, my community is extremely concerned that that building will sit for a period of time unused. They'd like to see activity there as soon as possible. We're talking about a $4 million gap we have in renovating this space. If we consider broadening or at least expanding Open High School, which I don't know if you've seen, but is now the #2 high school in the state of Virginia, And, you know, they have been advocating for a larger space for quite a long time. And I see this as perhaps an opportune time to grant that. Certainly exploring public-private partnerships, as long as that's done in a timely fashion, and along with considering that this could also benefit Open High School, I think is what I've been hearing from constituents as the preference. And it's $4 million, so hey, shout out, if the state can give that to us and we can go ahead and get it done now, it would be a wonderful thing. Again, we're talking about the #2 high school in the state, so I think it deserves that investment. Yeah, that's it.
Mr. Percival?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Superintendent, it would cost us $4 million to do the HVAC. What will it cost us to do nothing? So how long will it be before it costs us 16 million, 20 million because of the roof, et cetera, et cetera? So doing nothing obviously costs something in the long term.
Yeah, I don't have an exact figure. I will say a good portion of the roof was replaced recently. We did do that work. It's more of the internal elements that need to be addressed. I did confer with Mr. Hathaway, and there is, a several $1,000 cost of maintaining the electricity and a few other systems to make sure that we don't cause any additional damage. But we can go back and look at things like the portion of the roof that may still need to be worked on and any other systems and what the cost would be. I also just wanted, if I may, to speak to Ms. Rizzi's point, there is certainly a great deal of interest in moving open there, and I would happily support that. I do want to note $4 million is probably not the total cost of moving open there. We'd also have to retrofit bathrooms and a few other things. Bathrooms are for very small people and not high schoolers, along with a few other things. So probably north of $4 million, but I do think that's why potentially a public-private partnership could get us there on a sooner timeline. But again, we'll have to dig into that and see what's possible.
Dr. Harris Mohammed, and then Ms. Ricard.
Thank you. I appreciate that follow-up, Mr. Cameron. Can we have the same dedication and heart for our adult staff in the Norrell building? They're in a building that was an elementary school both of my children attended. And those bathrooms are very much like Clark Springs building. And so, and I spoke of this several years ago as to why they were operating and working out of that building as adults, and it is a full elementary school. So I'm just asking us the same desire that we have for the private partnership for the Clark Springs space. We need to have the same heart and dedication for our adult staff in A.V. Nora Elementary School. Thank you.
Ms. Ricard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to echo what Ms. Rizzi said about the community in Clark Springs. I know when Fox moved in there, we heard that a lot about how the community was happy the building was being used again. And I would hate for it to lie dormant for a long time because it's in such a lovely, lovely area. So for that reason, I would support a public-private enterprise if it fits our needs and works for us.
Thank you, Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm glad the superintendent gave the recommendation this evening as he did. I'm in full support of that in terms of not right now regarding open high or any other space that we're considering. Clark Springs is a beautiful setting, was a beautiful school, but as already stated, how much is it going to cost for us to allow it to continue to just be there? And I think that was a part of its demise, because that was that's where I got started as a teacher. Also, the grounds there, we're talking about 6 acres of property. I mean, we have schools such as Richmond High School of the Arts that doesn't have they didn't have homecoming because they have no football home field, things such as that. So I don't know whether it's through Parks and Recreation, but just some means by which to use some part of that building. Otherwise, it's going to go right back to what it did. A lot of money and effort was put into that building for Fox. And something needs to be in it, whether it's professional development, whether it's wellness. Please do not let it just sit there and be still, because it may take us a while to have that partnership, knowing the times that we're in. So my question is, number one, just as we did with Fox, with the refurbishing, remodeling or whatever, are there grant opportunities since that building was built in the 60s? Is there an opportunity to potentially gut a part of the building or whatever and get some funding there to remodel and redo the bathrooms, the whatever else, the classroom setting? It is an elementary setting, as stated. So my question is, I appreciate the information that's here. However, moving forward, I hope we don't have this conversation again in November or December and the building is still just sitting there empty. I don't want anybody to get hurt or whatever that we have to move there, but the building needs life. It needs life. So my question is, number one, can we look into the opportunity to refurbish or to since it's an old building. It's an old building. So that's a perfect opportunity to refurbish and do professional development or whatever we decide to do. But please, let's not let that building just stay still and continue to die, because that's what happened until they receive new life. So let's keep that life flowing. That's my question. Thank you.
Mr. Cameron, and then Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we will use as much life as we possibly can into the building, given our current resources. I do think, to your point, the long-term rehabilitation of the site will come down to grants, partnerships, and things of that nature. So we will certainly begin that process of exploration. I don't think it's eligible for historic tax credits like Fox was, just given the nature of the building, but we'll certainly explore that.
Ms. Rizzi, then Mr. Jafari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to just reiterate, I believe, and I certainly don't want to make this comparison or like, create some kind of this happened this time and this didn't happen this time, but I believe that the state came up with $10 million off the top
30 seconds.
to help out with William Fox. And if they can do that, it appears to me, or it feels to me, that for this caliber of a high school, and note, Open has never had a gymnasium or cafeteria, and they're still second in the state. And so it just would seem to me, without even a public-private partnership, the state could come up with what we need to go ahead and renovate this school and allow us to offer it to more students, offer the experience to more students.
Thank you. Mr. Jafari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we talk about Clark Spring, you're really talking about my community. Grew up right there around the corner when they built that school. Even though a lot of the community around there and the families have changed, it's still a cherished site. And the sentiment is that they want the building used. It means a lot to see the traffic coming and going. But on another point, and I'm hearing it echoed from my colleagues, we're going to have to find a way to bring that same sense of urgency to restoring Clark Springs and other schools like that we brought to Fox. And that's an urgency issue. So whatever it takes, we're going to have to turn over any rock. We're going to have to just pursue what the public-private partnerships, whatever we have to do. But the whole thing starts with how we approach this. And we're going to have to approach it with that same urgency. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd also like to add, Dr. Harris Muhammad, go right ahead.
A question, Mr. Cameron's, and I know Mr. Cooper is here. Has the Richmond Air Fund held, or do they have 5 billion in pledges or 7 million, something of amount of pledges? And if they do, is it specifically earmarked for a certain program? Is it earmarked for a certain school? Is it earmarked for schools overall in terms of facility maintenance? So that's what I would like to know.
Mr. Cameron?
I hesitate to speak for Mr. Cooper, but I'll give it a go. I don't believe, that he has that level of funding available, and if he did, that it's already earmarked for specific operational programming and not for capital expenditures.
Good evening.
Good evening. I didn't think you would call me up here today, Dr. Harris Muhammad. No, we do not have a fund currently for capital projects. This is something that we've been thinking about a lot. And I think that like that public-private partnership, I think there are some mechanisms that we can unlock to do some things differently. If that's the pleasure of the board, we're happy to explore it further.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I was very disappointed. I'm very disappointed to hear that yet again, we're kind of faced with some of the same dilemmas that we have with infrastructure issues across RPS, where it just comes down to the mighty dollar. And so I say this understanding that none of us today have a check that they can write for $4 million. And so I know it's not as easy, right? It's easier said than done. But I do still want us to truthfully, actively pursue alternatives. I think that I'm very open to a conversation, Mr. Cooper, about something where folks can donate towards capital, like towards infrastructure. We need it. I mean, we need a lot of resources, funding, grants to secure not just for the infrastructures that we have in place, but for new schools, particularly in spaces, I know in the 8th and 9th, where we are busting out of the seams and overpopulated and really need additional schools. So I would be interested in starting that conversation. I do appreciate the thought process and a food pantry. I love the idea of that. In the 9th district alone, 65% of our students are economically disadvantaged. So I think there would be some benefit in having those resources available to our families. And then also perhaps something small along the lines of professional development or things for family wellness, I think would be great to just kind of keep the pipes running, so to speak. In long term, I think that there's a lot of opportunity. We have 5 options that were put in front of us. Open high is certainly one of them that I think would be very beneficial, but there are others that we've spoken of as well, and so I don't want us to lose sight of that. I think that there is a large appetite for public and private partnerships at this point. We do have to start looking outside the box in ways that we can partner to secure funding for schools. So I would be open to hearing more about that as well. And with that, we will move right along to 3.02, receive for first read, 27, what am I saying, 2026 already. That's insane. School calendar.
All right, good evening. Thank you, Board Chair and members of the Board Superintendent at Cambris. I am delighted to share with you our 2026-2027 calendar proposal for this upcoming year. Let's get started. So I have linked into the calendar our proposed 2026-2027 for both our traditional and our RPS calendars. They are largely the same if you click on the links, mostly because there were a few minor edits to make sure that the colors were matching up. I had one was green and the other one was teal, and so I tried to make sure you had the most updated version via a link. So I just wanted to start off by saying this was a great experience. Last year I did the calendar for the first time. Happy to be doing it again. We have some notable discrepancies from our surrounding counties that I wanted to go ahead and highlight that you will see in our traditional calendar. I know that many of our team members here in RPS have children that go to schools to the north, south, east, west of us. And so I wanted to go ahead and flag that, but also happy to chat with you through some other questions that I know that you might have. So I highlighted for you the difference in the days where you might see a student holiday versus a regular school day, half day versus a full day. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone, I know it's a bunch of different colors and shapes and squiggles, and so I wanted to make it as clear as possible. I also did the same for Chesterfield. You'll notice most of our discrepancies with Chesterfield are regarding their half days. Also, I do want to point out, I do not have it listed under Henrico or Chesterfield, but on their calendars, they have, I believe, Yom Kippur is being celebrated on their official calendars on October 21st. I have reached out to my colleagues in other districts. That's actually incorrect. So it is September 21st. So you'll see that difference, but they're going to go back and edit their calendars. So a little cross-county collaboration, cross-city collaboration. For a feedback loop. So last year, I presented this to the board and everyone was like, who did you talk to? So I talked to some folks before I brought it to you. I held 2 focus groups discussions that were held on Thursday, August 21st, as well as Friday, August 22nd. We included, as you can see, school administrators, teachers, central office staff, office associates, directors, et cetera, and their feedback was taken into consideration. So the calendar that you see was not the original calendar that I proposed. But through their feedback, I was able to come to the calendar that we have. However, I did not conduct a public-facing survey. Oh, backtrack. I submitted this prior to also meeting with our union representatives, so our union president, as well as representatives from ELR. We had that meeting as well. I have not submitted a public-facing survey, but they are ready to go if that is your so choosing. However, I think that I made a really great attempt and had great conversations to include as many diverse parties that were representative of our constituents as possible. But those surveys are there and ready to launch if that is something that you so choose. And then really quickly, some FAQs that I know I'm sure that you have. Why not start the first week in August and end in May as we have for the past 2 years? There is nothing I want more than to say Happy Memorial Day. See you later. However, Virginia State Code prohibits school districts from beginning the school year more than 14 days before Labor Day. It is known as the King's Dominion Law because children can't ride roller coasters if they're in school. So we... So at this time, unless you file an exemption with the state, we must have this where we begin the second week of August and release in June rather than letting out in May. And then I gave you a little bit of data around why we are not having those half or early release days that we're seeing in our surrounding counties. We have a different type of challenge when it comes to chronic absenteeism than our neighbors. And so keeping that in mind as our bread and butter and putting our children first, you can see that we see a decrease in roughly 2,000 students who come to school on early release days. And while we serve over 22,000, I don't want us to look at it in terms of percentages, but for us to look at it as an every student matters issue. So we do not have early release days in our calendar, except, no, we don't. Yes, we don't. Never mind. Questions?
Ms. Ricard, Mr. Hedgepath, Dr. Harris Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for all the legwork you put into this. I appreciate no half days. I agree with you on the attendance. As a parent, I also find them really disruptive. So thank you. The one question I had actually also relates to this year's calendar. I see that for conferences, it's the same color used this year. But for 26, 27, you've put the very important word of after school secondary conferences. And we've had a lot of questions in the community of, is that the same for this year's calendar?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Ms. Ricard. That is an oversight that we had with our most previous calendar, and I also received a lot of feedback about that, and so I made sure to include that in the calendar. Our amazing brand and strategy coordinator who does a lot of our graphic design, Ms. Adrienne Kern, is currently out on maternity leave, and so she does all of our fancy calendar designing. As soon as she returns, I will make sure that we update our calendar so that it says after school for this year.
Thank you.
I did all of this without, bless my heart.
Mr. Hedgepath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Greenbell. I really appreciate the work that you put into this. I just have a couple questions about and concerns, and particularly about the 200-day calendar.
Yes.
That it's a lot of time for those kiddos and those faculty members to be in school right at the beginning without any break.
Sure.
I counted 7 weeks with no break from July 20 to September 3rd. I wonder, is that September 4th holiday, is that a standard holiday now that it's not actual Labor Day like the Monday is? Is it something that we can move to another time? The other question is, then we go again through October and there's no break. Is Indigenous Peoples Day a possibility for some relief for our kiddos and our teachers? I just wonder about the mental health and challenges. I feel like we learned a lot about mental health during COVID, and some of the lessons that we learned about slowing down and taking breaks more regularly. I think we forgot a lot about that. So I just wonder, that 4-day weekend on the beginning of September, right when school starts, can we break that up and make it a 3-day weekend at another point that might, give a rallying point to our communities for a break? If we can't do that in August, when the 200-day calendar is already underway, then maybe in October for Indigenous Peoples Day, which also the city made a proclamation to recognize. So we should be consistent with them as well. Just a question if that had been considered.
Thank you, Mr. Hedgepath. I think you point out something that's really great in terms of that long stretch that we do have for our 200-day schools. I will say that at this time, the only holidays, quote unquote, that are on this are what is reflected by RPS policy. And so Indigenous Peoples Day is not included in our RPS policy, although, always welcome to you all amending that. And we can also, I can definitely touch back with some of our representatives from the 200-day schools, work with our principals to see when would be an appropriate time to give them a break if that's something that their administrators and staff community advocated, and certainly insert that in.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Harris Mohammed.
Thank you. I have a recommendation to consider adding the open and closed dates of Head Start, so the community will be aware when that program opens in the various schools that house the Head Start. That's the recommendation.
Absolutely. I will confer with our Head Start team to do so. Also, one thing to note is when our lovely Ms. Kern returns, after collaborating with my colleague in Henrico, I will be separating this into a parents and students family calendar and then a staff-facing calendar. The purpose of this calendar is just to get all the dates up there, and when we're thinking about usability and we have all of our colors and shapes and squiggly lines, it might be really best to separate this into an internal and external facing document, and I forgot to add that, but I will definitely confer with our Head Start friends about adding the opening and close of Head Start.
Thank you, Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Follow up from Dr. Harris Mohammed. Question: VPI and Head Start have the same calendar, or do they start differently? Is in your
To
preschool?
my knowledge, they have the same
It's not the same.
calendar, yes.
So if we
Preferred.
include Head Start, can we also slash VPI?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and probably times as well. My other question is, or statement, follow up from what Mr. Hedgepath just stated in regards to 200-day schools. I really appreciate your reaching out to the principals or whomever, because for many of our students that are in those settings, school is a safe haven. School is meals. We receive meals. Schools, it's a safe environment. So just being mindful that we all need a break. We all do, but I do hope that there's an opportunity, especially at time of the month as well. First of the month is different than the end of the month. So when you speak to those principals as well, I'm sure they would not think, I know they would think twice, having been in that situation as a principal. First of the month is always different than the end of the month. So whatever holidays we're speaking of, to be mindful of our communities of which we serve.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. No other questions. I just have this one bit of feedback. The suggestions were great from all the colleagues that shared already. Mine is just more centered around the survey, which I appreciate you showing the link, but I don't, unless I'm overlooking it, I don't see the actual results of how many responded and
No,
all
so
of the
those
things.
surveys have not been deployed.
Okay.
It was if beyond the focus groups and the data that I've already collected in terms of the conversations and the presentation, if you would like me to deploy them, I'm more than happy to deploy them. I just have not done so yet.
Okay, understood. And with that same mind, for the focus groups, it doesn't list how many. I mean, sometimes we get feedback, but it's only a handful. I just want to understand, does this truly reflect, you know, the sum of RPS, or is it a small few? Those details, I think, really matter when we're trying to determine whether or not we really truly understand the heart of our of staff and teachers. So that's always helpful to include.
Absolutely, and I will make sure to share the names of the participants before the end of
I appreciate that.
names and positions.
And I would also, I'm always open for a good survey. Open, you know, so that we just get, it's always good to just get a pulse check, because sometimes we can make decisions from, you know, where we stand and it makes sense to us, but we don't always truly or walk in those shoes of the people who are really impacted. So I think it's always a good idea to just ensure this is a way that they can have a seat at the table, so to speak.
Understood. I will make sure that it makes its way into RPS Direct into all of our schools. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great presentation. All right, next up, we're going to 303, discuss education collaborative meeting. I'll start off by just sharing that this was an opportunity for those who are not aware. On August 28th, we were able to sit down as a collective, as a school board team with Superintendent Cameras, along with Mayor Avula, and our city council representatives, to really discuss our joint efforts in education. Really came away excited and fired up about the meeting. Obviously, there's a lot of work ahead of us, but I think a good portion of this meeting truly reflected that there was a need for us to understand the work and the body of work that each represented. And this was a great opportunity for us to get a better understanding of how we are impacted by the budget and the decisions that are being made. So I just wanted to, jotted down a few notes just to share, and then in a minute, I'd like for Superintendent Cameras to kind of share some aha moments that I think we all felt during that conversation. But the purpose was to prepare for the upcoming fiscal year 2027 Richmond government budget cycle and strengthen collaboration and support of public education. As we know, we do look to work and partner with our city council representatives, but the reality is the funding needs are way surpassed by what they're able to assist us with. And so this was really an opportunity for both the administration and RPS to really present high-level budget analysis and get a better understanding of what the decision-making process is. So the value of the meeting, really, this session created an opportunity for better understanding each other's entities' budgeting process, strengthen transparency and alignment, which I thought was really, we brought home across City Hall, City Council, and RPS. Also to build a foundation for long-term sustainable funding plans to ensure students and families thrive. So we walked away with some shared commitments. The meeting demonstrated a unified commitment to public education. Council President Cynthia Newbill called it an impactful, constructive gathering that reaffirmed collective action and commitment. Mayor Avula highlighted the importance of intentional communication and collaboration, recognizing the challenges faced by families and teachers. And we also emphasized that, you know, Richmond's children depend on multiple city services. And it's, you know, the right hand has to know what the left hand is doing because we're in this together. And so I walked away just really excited, talking to President Newbill about our next steps. We're already talking about putting something on the calendar to just continue this conversation. But overall, I thought it was a great representation of when we come together that we can truly start achieving some major goals. So with that, I'll send it over to Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will echo all of those comments. A really great discussion. Let me just highlight a few key points that I think, as you noted, were aha moments for folks in the room. First was the need for greater state investment in public education and some detail around the LCI, the Local Composite Index, which is the state's determination of a locality's ability to pay for education. So we can jump to slide 9. I think this was a big slide for everybody, which shows the LCI for some of our peer districts and also the surrounding counties. The 0.57 there for Richmond means, according to the state, 57% of our K-12 education should be funded by the locality, with the balance coming from the state. As you can see, that is higher than Hanover, Henrico, and Chesterfield. In other words, this is the state's formula saying that Richmond has a higher ability to pay for education locally than our 3 surrounding counties. And given the, excuse me, the nature of how that formula works, I think this was certainly surprising to many folks. As you can see, we are closing in on Fairfax County, which is one of the wealthiest counties in the Commonwealth, let alone the United States. So this was a big moment of clarity, I think, for a lot of folks in the room. Additionally, if we jump to slide 14 on the capital maintenance side, this jumped out at folks. We have about a $37 million current maintenance need compared to a $2.5 million budget. So this goes back to the conversation we were having about Clark Springs just a few moments ago. And this $37 million is captured on the following slide. Fortunately, the board previously approved use of American Rescue Plan funds to do an independent assessment of our facilities. And that's where this slide comes from. It comes from that independent assessment about what our needs are for this current year. And you can see they are extensive. So that, again, I think for everybody in the room was very illuminating and helped clarify why it's difficult for us to accomplish many of the things that we'd like to do as it pertains to infrastructure, given what we actually have funding-wise. And then the third element I'll jump to is slide 18. I'm sorry, slide 20, which are some of our known budget challenges going into this upcoming budget cycle for FY27. So we have about $8 million that we used in our current budget, which comes from one-time, non-recurring funding sources. So those are not available to us next year. So that creates a hole for us going into next year. We also have about 6.3 million in existing commitments to our collective bargaining partners. That's new expenditures. And then a health insurance increase projected at about $6 million. So altogether, a roughly $20 million increase in spending that we are already anticipating, knowing that it's going to be a tight budget year. I do want to note the city shared some really valuable information about the city's budget and about property tax revenue and holding assessments static for the next year and what that's going to mean for revenue. And in essence, revenue will more or less be flat. And so it is going to be a challenging budget year, and we're going to have to make some difficult decisions. We did end on a high note. I certainly think it was a high note. One of the questions we get is, what is the funding getting us? And I'm just going to jump to the, actually, we don't have the new slides, which I shared, but we, as I shared with the board and has been shared publicly, the SOL results were released at the end of last week. We are up again in math and reading and science and history 2 years in a row. Not only that, we're seeing growth for economically disadvantaged students in reading that is 5 times as fast as economically disadvantaged students across the state. And our multilingual learners in reading are performing at the same level as the state average and are actually exceeding their performance of their peers in Henrico and Chesterfield, whom I love and adore, and I don't mean to cast any aspersions. There simply is important to note that the public narrative, which is sometimes shared, that Richmond RPS is somehow less than, is simply not true and requires us to dig deeper into the data. And when you do that, you can see that in many cases, not only are we not less than, but we are more than. And I think anybody who knows our kids, there you go. You can jazz hands that one. That's right. Again, educators are working hard all across the state, all across Central Virginia, but I did want to note that. And so when people ask you, where is the money going? That's what you can tell them. It's going to outsized growth in reading. It is going to all these gains that we're seeing in every subject now 2 years in a row. And we don't have the official data yet, and we're not going to talk about it publicly yet until October, but we have good graduation news coming down the pike too. So there's a lot to celebrate, and that's where these investments are going and why these investments are critical and why we should continue to be unapologetic about not just asking, but demanding the resources that our students need and that our teachers need to be successful. So all in all, I think it was a great discussion, a lot of good learning that happened across the bodies. And I will note, if you'd like to, watching tonight, you'd like a good recap, Ms. Eva Tucson did a great article about it in the Richmonder, and so you should check it out. I think it's an excellent recap of the meeting.
Ms. Burke, Ms. Rizzi, Mr. Hitchback.
Thank you so very much. I too enjoyed and appreciated being, not enjoyed, but appreciated being at the table with City Council as well as those persons in the audience. Because when you do this every day and as we come together for meetings regularly, we know the deal, we know the story. When we have the opportunity to tell our story beyond it, people see things differently. My question is, number one, what are we going to do to celebrate? Always have to celebrate. Always have to celebrate. And my thought is, in terms of, I want everyone here to know, and I'll share this, we are listed, one of the committees that I serve on with the Virginia School Board Association. I always say, where is Richmond? Richmond is all over the place. I'm going to share the report in a good way. But oftentimes, we're not seen as the thriving school system that we are. We are making things happen. And I think one reason for that is stability in leadership. Stability in leadership. That means a lot. That means a lot, because whenever you have changes, a new person always brings in Sometimes that's good, sometimes that isn't, but stability is there, and it's most important. So my number one question is, I want to know, what are we going to do with this data? Is this all on social media? Because it should be. I mean, legally, can we do that? I want to put that big orange circle so folk can know they need to vote in November, because we have some decisions to make. But if you don't know it and you're not here, a lot of people don't know what we've just seen. A lot of people are not on Facebook tonight or social media or whatever listening. So I'm glad an article was done, but this information needs to be, was it in RPS Direct? I didn't read today. It is, okay, well, I didn't see it today, okay, maybe yesterday either, I don't know, it was a holiday. But my thought with that is this, we need to tell our story, because as long as others, and I appreciate the news media doing what they're doing in our favor, but until we tell our story, others will continue and we will always be at the bottom, because history has taught us that it's always good to have somebody above somebody else. But look out, Richmond is going to take over and then some, because we're showing the growth. So my question is, what are we going to do with this wonderful data, which the report to Superintendent Cameras was well done.
30 seconds.
Well, I can talk for 30 seconds.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Burke. So we have been anticipating this and are very, very excited about it. Our Director of Communications, Alyssa Schwank, has drafted we're strategically planning how we're releasing this information, making sure that we are telling our story. We're telling our story loudly and to the people who need to hear it. And we've been working in collaboration with the media to make sure that those great stories, we're so grateful that they write, they also don't appear out of thin air. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work that we're doing. And we are very committed to making sure that this is shouted from the rooftops by air, land, and sea.
What are we doing nationally? What are we doing nationally? What are we doing nationally?
That's also a part of the plan. So last year we had 3 positive national stories that were featured about us from RPS. I can resend them to the board if you all would like to see those. But yes, we have both a key performance indicators this year as it relates to our communications teams, where we're doing local media as well as national media. Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. Mr. Cameron, and then I think Ms. Rizzi was next.
I did want to know, in terms of celebration, I am told that some years ago when Chimborazo was very successful, the principal took everybody to the Caribbean. And so, I mean, I don't know if that's something.
I second that.
It's not bad.
And we've been fully accredited every year since.
Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a comment and then a question. So, I think definitely, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, growth is good and we need to celebrate it. Though when we look at the numbers, we have a little ways to go before we hit state averages. I think the plan will be, and this is to, extend an olive branch to our neighbors. We'll all get to the state average and then we will rise together. And then we won't be doing Henrico, Richmond, we'll all be together and we'll work together in tandem for all of our students. The question I have, and maybe Mr. Stanley could answer it, what does it look like? What specifically can we request of the General Assembly when it comes to holding RPS harmless where the LCI is concerned?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mrs. Rizzi. We have attempted some hold harmless budget amendments in the past. They have not been favorably received. The General Assembly is usually hesitant to provide specific locality exemptions to formula-based funding streams. So unfortunately, we have not had success with that in the past. Instead, we have often talked about. At the meeting last week, it was talked about that the city receives a pilot of a few $1,000,000, but that pales in comparison to what the actual tax value of all the non-taxable property is, which is over $100 million. So we've thought about approaching it in ways like that to help make up some of that difference. But in terms of a hold harmless for the LCI, that has not been favorably received in the past.
Thank you. So a better route, I'm following. A better route would be to look at all of our very valuable untaxed property and make an argument that something should be done for us based on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hitchpath, and then Mr. Farouk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I concur with Ms. Burke on thanking Mr. Cameras for a solid presentation to our counterparts in the city the other day. I thought that was an outstanding job. And the celebrations that Ms. Burke also said, I think are important with the critical eye of Ms. Rizzi that we all still have a lot to do. But I was heartened by the meeting, and I was glad that we had reignited that, since it had been 3 years since the bodies have been together. I think that's far too long. I'd really like to see us regularly meet, if not once a year, then more than that. And you certainly defer to my colleagues to discuss that at another time. But there were a couple portions or pieces that I thought that were really important for us to advocate and to elevate for the community. One was about the LCI that's already been mentioned, but the other is the 1% tax that could be voted upon by localities that would go to capital expenditures for school districts. It was vetoed by the governor this year, even though it was bipartisanly passed by the General Assembly. The hope is that that will continue, that will be brought up again in the next session and hopefully approved by the new governor. But that would really be a shot in the arm for our needs for capital improvement. We really need to explore many different avenues. As my colleagues have already said, the state is one of those, to fund RPS, as we know that budgets are flat and tapped, but our needs are not. So I just want to emphasize that we as a school system, as much as we possibly can, should be advocating out loud for that 1% tax. That could be, of course, spread out, not just with our citizens, but all visitors who come to the city of Richmond could be contributing in a way that is very positive to our city, right? Is investing in our schools. So just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Farouk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will just address head on the tension we're feeling in these discussions about the needs being many and the dollars being few. And that is a deliberate policy decision that people in power made over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years. I'll tell you what, the dollars are not few. This is the richest country in the world. Virginia is one of the richest states in this country. And the GDP of the Richmond metro area has grown every single year for the last 14 years. And so it is normal in a healthy society to continuously increase how much we invest in our young people. So I'm grateful to our mayor, our previous council, and previous school board for increasing our budget. And as Mr. Cameras and our staff has shown over and over, the results of that, the rising test scores, the decreased absenteeism, the increasing graduation rates. But let's just talk about the real barrier, which is that we have a tax structure that was deliberately created to prevent us from robustly funding human services, from robustly funding things that help people. And I think maybe it was Ms. Rizzi, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, who mentioned, let's look at taxing corporations. There is wealth in this city, in this state, and in this country. So let's have that hard conversation with our city council partners, with our mayor, about taxing corporations. Let's right-size our tax system. Are we taxing corporations properly? Are we taxing the wealthy properly? They seem to have plenty of money when election time comes around, and they're throwing them at these dark money PACs. So that's my 2 cents about it, and I look forward to continuing that conversation.
Mr. Percival.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We spend a lot of time evaluating our students, as this slide points out, K through 2 reading, 3 through 12 SOLs, graduation rates. Do we have report cards for the adults, for the politicians? If you didn't make the meeting, I came with some data. So there is an audit report that is provided by the Commonwealth. And in this audit report, there are 38 cities, and it has per capita spending. And in areas like public safety, Richmond has managed to make it to the top of the list. We spend more per capita than any other city in the Commonwealth. For public works, we were number 3 on the list. We managed to find coins in the couch cushion to make it to number 3. For parks and recreation, we were number 7. Parks and recreation, found money for that. Community development, again, we were number 1 in the Commonwealth. And if you were there, you already know where I'm going. For education, what does a report card say for Richmond? We were number 22 out of 38 cities in the Commonwealth for per capita spending on education. Those are just the numbers. That's it. If we could commit, if Richmond could commit not to make it to number 1 in education, I'd love that. That would be great. If we could just get in the top 10, I did some envelope math, we'd only have to spend $200 per capita more. That amount of money for the population of Richmond would be a little over $40 million, or the Superintendent Cameras' slide, our CIP budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Rizzi, then Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since I have been called out, I do want to highlight the fact that, and I know that drawing corporations, to Virginia is important, and we certainly don't want to turn them away. But our corporate tax rate is now at 6%, and it's been that way since 1972. And so I do think that it may be time to revisit and think about, we talk about public-private partnerships. Those generally involve one-time, for lack of a better
30
way to
seconds.
put it, donations. What better way to fund schools than to commit to paying a little more in taxes in perpetuity? That would be a great investment in public education, and it would show us that our corporations really do support public schools.
Thank you, Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I
24
just,
seconds.
excuse me?
24 seconds.
Okay. Just want us to be mindful in terms of, at this point, knowing with the corporations and all that, we can get out in the community and ask for that, but at the end of the day, it's not a decision that we would make. All right, and number 2, I want us to be mindful. I agree, since I didn't know the data that Ms. Rizzi just shared, 19, whatever it was, 92, 72, 72, that's not good. But I also want to speak.
Did you say time? I'm sorry, did you say time? I'm sorry, Ms. Burke.
She said?
Yeah, it's time.
You're gonna miss what I was gonna say.
I know
It was good too.
I know it was
It was
good.
really good.
Mr. Jafari.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think I would be remiss if I did not point out, first of all, I'm just elated about the data. It's all I can keep from doing. I'm just so bubbly. I've always been an advocate for Richmond Public Schools, even before I came to sit up here. Always was, and continue to be. But I want to point out that none of this is instantaneous. I think colleagues have pointed out that it comes from a sustained work effort from the top. And so what I think I need to do and I have to do is recognize Mr. Cameras and prior board members who sit up here, 3 of which are former chairs. And it's because of their persistent work that you now see the results that you're seeing. Again, I point out that none of this is instantaneous. And so I just didn't want anything to pass without recognizing the prior boards who actually put their shoulders to the wheel and made some very tough choices. And while I'm on the subject, we had a 35-year Richmond employee, financial department employee, speak to the fact that when Mayor Stoney was in office, it was the most revenue ever given to Richmond Public Schools. And so I want to also, he gets a lot of discredit, but I want to give him his credit right now because that too is a part of what we're seeing here in these increases. And for those who wonder where the money is going, you're looking at it. Look up here on the screen, you'll see where the money is going. And I take my hat off to the administration over there. You guys are doing a marvelous job, keep it up. And I just look forward to seeing Mr. Cameron's dye his hair orange come June.
I echo the sentiments of all of my colleagues. I won't belabor the point, but I would also be remiss if I didn't recognize the actual educators, the teachers that are in the classrooms, serving our scholars every single day. Our hats go out to them. They are the heroes in this book. And so just thank you, principals, teachers, educators, for all that you do, interventionists. Everyone has, this result is from collaboration all across the board. I walked away from the meeting excited, and I am a firm believer, and after the meeting, I spoke with President Newbill, and I said, when are we gonna go across the street? I mean, I'm serious. Like, let's make some noise. RPS is on the rise, and this is the perfect opportunity for us to do it. Matthew Stanley, we will be leaning very heavily on you. I've already mentioned your name in multiple rooms that you were not in, because I know that the great work that you've done up until this point in legislation. I've had a couple of principals that I've introduced you to as well that want to be a part of that conversation. So colleagues, if we have someone that can go with us to tell the story, be thinking about people we can nominate, but I do believe we need to be very strategic about what we do next. And so that's going to be something that I want to get feedback from everyone so that we can move forward and really make some impact, not just from a city level, not just from a state level, but on a federal level. And when we said, let's go to DC, let's go to DC too. The buck doesn't just stop here. So, all right, I'm done. But thank you all so much that we're able to attend. If you've noticed, we've been very strategic in our efforts. We do have a meeting coming up this Friday, I believe, with Senator Hashmi and the delegation, and it serves the same purpose. We have to just be very intentional about collaborating with those that we work alongside. And so this is another opportunity that we have, and really excited. I've been working with their team to ensure that it's a really robust conversation. All are welcome to attend that as well. All right. Moving right along to 3.04, receive an update on board professional development training. I was hoping that I was able to announce a date this evening for professional development. As you know, we do have mandatory training that is required. And so, all eyes are on me right now. I just want to reiterate the importance of this training. Unfortunately, the October 24th date fell through. And so now we are looking at Tuesday, October 28th. I would really, really like for everyone to take a stern look at your availability. I know that we do have educators on the board, and so very sensitive to that. But this is training that we have to do collectively. And there's other opportunities for professional development as well that is still on the horizon. We're literally waiting to get this professional development training done. There have already been some suggestions and of thoughts about what that could be, but we have to ensure that we cover what's mandatory before we do, something that's optional. So I would just, again, strongly ask that everyone really look at that date and confirm in the next few days. As you've known, every time we kind of secure a date, by the time we get it back to the VSBA, it's already been booked. So we really have to move very quickly because the year is almost out. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions or feedback. Thank you. Okay, moving right along to 3.05, receive for first read policy committee recommendations.
We do not have any this evening.
All right, moving next to 3.06, receive for first read contracts over 100K.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are presenting 3 contracts. One is for waste management services. One is for building maintenance and supply services. And one is for some educational technology. Happy to take any questions this evening, or of course you can reach out over email and we'll make sure to answer them in time for a vote at our next meeting.
Any questions? All right, have a good night. All right, moving right along to administrative updates. I'm sorry, we do have the amended agenda 3.07, receive for first read the resolution for annual maintenance plan. And I want to notate that the resolution document has been uploaded under 5.01 for those who would like to read it. Ali, Mr. Farouk, sorry. Would you like to share? Take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pulling it up myself. Okay. Oh, here it is. So, Madam Chair, I drafted this resolution that is just simply calling for the creation of an annual maintenance plan for Richmond Public Schools. So as we have discussed at length today and almost at every single one of our meetings, we talk about our facilities, the need for maintenance, the constant underfunding. And I know that for myself, it's one of the most common things I hear about from constituents is emails or texts from staff or parents about buildings being too hot or cold, or just inquiring when certain things will be repaired. And I know that our RPS staff always do their best whenever I email them, which is probably too often, asking for updates. They're always very gracious and provide us updates, but I'm sure that we could centralize this into a transparent public maintenance plan so that people know when the dollars we've appropriated in our budget for capital improvement, we have a basic idea of where they're going, what they're for, and what the basic timeline is. So I have just quickly drafted something here. I know that our staff are already in the process of trying to create something like this, so I'm very open to thoughts, questions, and revisions, and also think this is a way for us as a board to show that we take this very seriously and want to create something that aren't just updates that we get internally, but something that is publicly accessible for our RPS family. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Farouk. Mr. Cameras?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to note we have no objection to this. As Mr. Farouk noted, we're already underway putting something or doing some thinking about what this could look like. And so happy to work with the board to make something that is really useful for not only for the board, but for the public at large. Yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Rizzi, then Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Farouk, I do appreciate this. As a resolution, I mean, ultimately what this does is give our facilities department a task or a mandate. And that's fine. I mean, I know that Mr. Hathaway will be presenting a facilities plan. Now it seems like in November, just to coincide with the earlier presentation. And I think from me, and this is just me, I think that directive could be done in a motion. or we could just ask Mr. Hathaway to give us 2 updates. That the public needs to know that we take this seriously is definitely something I agree with. And so I would like to see this resolution broadened to include board actions that will be taken to also meet these goals and to help the district with securing what we need to, the preventative maintenance, what do you call it? The deferred maintenance budget, is incredible. And we, since I've been on the board, have never been close to taking care of all of the items that need to be taken care of. And so I'd like to see this expanded to include what the board is going to do to make sure that, advocacy is done to help fund some of these repairs that need to be made, have long needed to be made. And so, yes, beyond just giving a directive to Mr. Hathaway and his team, I'd like to see this broadened. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in agreement with Mrs. Rizzi at some point to enhance what's in place. Our facilities team has done a phenomenal job. I would like to hear more from their department before we move forward with this at this point, because they are doing the do. I know what I see in the schools, what I have seen in the past with very little. You can call Bobby Hathaway in the morning, by the afternoon it's done. Seriously. It's no excuse for things not to get done. But so far as being transparent for the community, I just question the need of having a resolution, because it's something that's going to be done anyway. It took us about 4 years to reach consensus just to have that facilities study. It took us 4 years. That was a long, long, drawn-out process. And I remember last year when we received it, every board member received it. It was out on the board docs. If there's more that we need to do regarding letting the public know, fine. But as Ms. Rizzi stated also, I just want to be mindful of what else we're putting on that department. But I would like to know at some point when they give their report from the facilities department, how many jobs have been addressed in the last, let's say, 2 years? Does anybody know that? As we talk about moving forward, what's Mr. Patrick's last name?
Mr. Harrell?
Mr. Harrell. Maybe okay. Is that all right, Madam Chair? That he comes up? Okay. All right. But I want to know. I want to know. So you know the answer there? Oh, my.
Make sure you
Put the mic
put the
on.
button there.
Yes, ma'am. We receive about 12 to 13,000 work orders per year. Over the 5 years that we've had our work order system, we've had over 46,000 work order requests. We have completed over 44,000 of them. And I say we, I'm only a couple weeks in, so Bobby and team get all of that credit. They're an unbelievable team.
Ms. Burke?
You said 44,000
Yes, ma'am.
in how many years?
In 4.5 years when we
4.5 years.
Yes.
So do you know what's left for us to complete that's in the docket to be completed, back orders or whatever? What's not there? That's a lot.
It is. We have 1,000 work orders that aren't completed as of when I checked last week. A large number of those were from the start of the school year that we are actively working through. There's a small percentage that are those deferred maintenance items, but most of those are cleared out of the work order system.
Follow up?
Yep.
I commend our facilities team. So before we move forward, my position is let's hear more from them before saying we want you to do this when you're already doing it. Maybe it's a different way by which we need to tell our story. But well done to the facilities team. So you're gonna have an easy job, aren't you?
No, ma'am. I will pass that along. Thank you.
He's up for the challenge, I'm sure. Dr. Harris Muhammad.
Thank you. I do also believe that our facilities team is doing a great job. In addition to this, the previous board, and I know we are we're the new team, we're the new family now. But one of the things that I recall in our conversation was not creating resolutions or motions out of actions from the media or the public. And so one of the things that I thought about, and I really appreciate Mr. Farouk having a forward mindset of how do we address this, is that I began looking at it from the perspective of in my day-to-day work, how do I address the lack of miscommunication? For example, not meeting, or did we not meet, did we not complete the asbestos report? And then if that didn't happen, why not? Like, what happened with that? And so the resolution doesn't speak to that. So we just have to, the word of the evening was transparent. So let's be transparent about, these are the processes, this is the procedure. We may need to review what processes and procedures we have in place currently because that report or lack thereof did not get out the way that it should have been. The same manner in which we handled the Fox Elementary fire and lack thereof communication, that's the same posture we need to take with this. And that is speaking with the facilities team, that is speaking with our maintenance team. And so I am in no way saying that resolutions are not doable or not needed. That is in no way, that's not what I'm saying. What I believe is that we need to walk in conjunction with, because I know a lot of people, I saw some of the same social media feedback and comments and all of those different things. I would like for us to continue to be proactive and not reactive, because we cannot address every negative comment that the media or the community or even our staff state on all these other group things
30
with a
seconds.
resolution. And so, or with a resolution. So I just would like to see us walk in conjunction with our facilities team, with Mr. Patrick, I'm sorry, leading the wheel and just saying, hey, maybe we need a policy revision. I don't know until I know what the process is. And so I think we need to start with that. What's the process? And why did the ball drop, and can we address it as a board? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jafari.
Thanks, Madam Chair and my colleagues. I certainly appreciate Mr. Farouk again with the forward look at the importance of facilities maintenance. But I'm going to kind of look at this. I think somebody echoed it a moment ago. To have two assessments is good. To move it from one annually to two is good. But what's even better is to first, one, talk with them and speak with them. But more importantly, let's identify what we're going to do to help him do what we're asking him to do. And I think that's something that's kind of missing here. We need to be able to know, if we're going to put more load, more work on them, then what is it going to call for on the back end? And so I would, at this point, I would want something like that to be clarified before we move ahead and simply just make a resolution on that matter.
Thank you. I'd also like to add, I would agree that there's been a lot of miscommunication out there in terms of some of the things that have been in the headlines and in news in terms of some of the steps that were not taken. I won't settle on that, but I will say that I have really great relationships with a lot of folks in the facilities, and I think that they work extremely hard and do a great job under very dire circumstances. I keep hearing a lot of concerns about them being understaffed and overworked. And so I appreciate Mr. Farouk's resolution, because it brings awareness to some things that we probably need to poke holes in as a board, and get a better understanding of where we are in hiring. Are they short-staffed? Because I keep hearing that specifically. Also, I do believe that if there's, how many did you say maintenance? Was it 27,000? 47,000. What systems are in place to keep those balls floating? Think about 47,000 work orders that have been processed over the last 4.5 years. If there's not some type of systematic system in place to ensure that things are moved along, it's very, very easy to lose sight of work orders, and that's nobody's fault. But how can we best support those efforts? Do they have the right software? I think there's a lot of more questions that need to be asked, and I think that the facilities group should be a part of that conversation and getting an understanding of not only what is working well for them, but how can we support them through policy and also by way of the administration and making sure that a structure is sound. I know that, for example, one of the reports, the HERO reports, it was done, but they didn't send the report out in a timely manner. It's nobody's fault. When you have so many balls that you're carrying, it's very easy to lose sight. It's not an excuse, and certainly that's something that we want to look at is like
30 seconds.
timelines, making sure that if the HERO's report is supposed to be out by September 5th, we have that tickler on the calendar. It's out by September 5th, for example. I say all that to say that there's still a lot to unpack here, but I think this is a really good start to a longer conversation. So thank you for bringing it to our attention, Mr. Farouk, and I think we can kind of think through it a little bit more and definitely bring them as part of this conversation as a facilities team. All right. Moving right along. We have administrative updates. 4.01, receive an update on care and safety.
Yeah, but not just yet.
Good evening, Ms. Parks.
Good evening, school board members and Superintendent Cameras. Tonight's Care and Safety is going to do 2 partner spotlights. For the last couple of years, we've focused a lot on our internal teams, but we feel periodically, because we have a lot of great community partners, that we need an opportunity to spotlight them as well. And so you'll hear about all of our great work Connexus over the next couple of months. We just launched, today was our very first vaccination fair that we do for our 7th grade and our 12th grade students. We have clinics at each and every one of our secondary schools. But tonight we'll focus on 2 of our partner groups. We have RVA Fit for Kids, as well as VCU, and they will talk a little bit about 2 things. I was hoping to start with the resolution while we were talking about resolutions, if it's okay that we go out of order.
Any concerns with that, colleagues? Go right ahead.
So RVA Fit for Kids has been a partner of RPS for 10 years. Yes, this is going into our 10th year. They are excellent partners, and they do a variety of things for us. As you know, we kicked off last year our girls flag football team. We have all of our gardens at our Title I schools, and then we have our Safe Route to School program. So historically, our Safe Routes to School program was the city and RVA Fit for Kids in partnership with RPS. This year, VDOT, they actually pivoted the requirements. They're a little bit more stringent since RPS is the benefactor of this grant. We took the lead on it. RVA Fit for Kids will still be our amazing partner and help us with it. And so earlier there was a question posed by you, Mr. Percival, and you asked about the risk factor. It's actually a low risk factor. We got an email today and they're changing a couple of things. And so we'll actually be able to apply for additional funds, which is great because this is the last year of the 4-year cycle. So beginning in year 26, 27, it will be under RPS and Fit for Kids. As a part of the grant application process, we have to submit the resolution, and so we're asking for your support for that this evening. I know that you will be voting tomorrow night, but happy to take any questions.
Ms. Burke?
have a comment. I've benefited personally by Fit for Kids. Seriously, over the years with, especially during COVID, when we had opportunities to exercise with your families and you always would join them, not always, as much as I could. And then afterwards, just the walking from wherever it is in the neighborhood together, it's a lot of fun. And it also does more than just physically and addressing your needs per se, but also mentally, because you have an opportunity to talk with people in a relaxed setting, with parents and students walking to school. So I'm so happy to hear, I fully support this, and I'm happy to hear that this partnership will continue, because in an inner city setting, where many of our children don't have sidewalks to walk, or as I get calls every day, we have to walk through the alleys because we're afraid of the streets. So it brings about a sense of community. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you to Fit for Kids as well. Well done. Thank you.
Can we give Justine, who is representing Fit for Kids tonight, some spirit fingers? Thank you, board members. Now to our Hydrate RPS study. Dr. Melanie Bean is just going to give you some highlights of our study. We are actually completed our first year. It is a 3-year project over 12 elementary schools, and Dr. Bean will come and give us some highlights.
Parks. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to tell you about some of this exciting work we've been doing with healthy hydration in RPS. The QR code links to a fun video that we created. We hope for wide dissemination of the video to all of the parents, caregivers, students, administrators, anybody. I think it's really designed to maintain engagement with this effort, to really report back on what we've been up to and where we're headed. Like Ms. Parks mentioned, this is a really exciting partnership. Fit for Kids has been our longstanding partner in this work. This work also is informed by a very impressive community advisory board. We formed this board over 4 years ago. We've been meeting quarterly throughout this duration, and everything that we do is really developed by and informed by our community advisory board. So really, this work started when Richmond adopted a water access policy, and they installed hydration stations to make clean, safe water, drinking water accessible throughout the school day. RPS partnered with our teams to really help optimize healthy hydration within this policy and environment. So we conducted, as I mentioned, a community advisory board. We conducted multiple interviews with multiple different parents, teachers, wellness leaders. We partnered with with student and teacher ambassadors to really evaluate the hydration landscape. And then we partnered with students and an advertising specialist to develop some hydration marketing materials, which are fun, and I'll share them with you today. We took all of this great data. We understood what are the needs and the strengths and assets with RPS related to hydration, and we developed a community participatory hydration intervention that really is designed to address those needs and build on strengths. Now we're at the opportunity where, after we piloted this, we are funded by the National Institutes of Health to implement Hydrate RPS in 12 elementary schools over 3 years. Not to go into all of this, but we know water intake has multiple levels of influence. So we have assessed all of those levels, and this is designed to really reach all of those levels. So with these 12 schools, how did we pick them? We wanted it was scientifically decided to have all Title I schools. We categorized and matched the schools and then randomly selected them. We were aiming for representation across all districts. Unfortunately, District 1 had no available school at the time because Fox was switching school buildings. So that is unfortunately the one district not represented in Hydrate RPS at this time. Our approach is environmental level, designed with and delivered by our community and RPS partners, applies all evidence-based strategies. And really the purpose is to integrate healthy hydration into the school culture with an eye towards sustainability. How can we keep this up when this is over, when the funding is over? Just outlined for you here some of the key components of the intervention: social marketing, education and outreach, and behavioral reinforcement. Got some fun pictures, and certainly you can check out the slides if you'd like some more information just about kind of all of the different components, but have some pictures of our kickoff where students all receive and personalize water bottles that they keep at school. They're learned how to clean those water bottles and maintain them, and they have the opportunity for some fun experiential activities like tasting fruit-infused water, Again, some of our fun kids. Here's some of our cool champions with year one. And you might recognize some familiar water heroes here from year one of our intervention. Important to this is partnering with teacher and student ambassadors. So here's just a couple of our ambassadors across some of our first year schools. We also have a key partnership with open high school students who are trained as health leaders, and they come and are peer mentors to our elementary school ambassadors. This is just a very exciting partnership that we are excited to be able to keep up in future years. Again, just provided some information. You can see some of the components of the intervention, but have to show you this one, which is our cool marketing. Hold on, there we go. Okay, develop with the students. Really cool superhero marketing. It is so fun. The messaging, the images, the theme was all really developed with student input and partnered with a pretty phenomenal advertising specialist, John Slay. And these have been, these are very incredibly well received by students and staff. Lastly, well, I'll skip over some of this. We have some of these are just some of the assessments, so we can see how is Hydrate RPS working? Are we meeting our intended outcomes? Again, all of the outcomes that we also are delivering or assessing in the intervention, we're informed by our community advisory board and our partners about what are things that are important to them, in addition to outcomes important from the scientific literature. So year one, we had a successful year one, as Ms. Park said. Just wanted to spotlight one of our schools, J.H. Blackwell. Here's some pictures from their launch. What we do is reporting back is a super important part of our, all community engaged research. So really, we report back kind of in the spring, their snapshot of how their intervention was. As you can see, Blackwell consumed 26,425 water bottles throughout that year. Really they were just a phenomenal partner, really great student and teacher ambassadors. Here's another report that we present to the schools. They each get a personalized report in the fall of the prior year to show them where they are compared to the average of the other 3 schools who received the intervention that year. Because of science, we're not allowed to compare to the control schools quite yet. That would unblind us, but we can we let each school kind of see where they are just compared to the others in active intervention. And you can see here, consistently increased water consumed from the hydration stations, more likely bringing a water bottle to lunch more often. Teachers are more likely to encourage students to refill their water bottles, increases in knowledge, as well as some reductions in sugar beverage intake in our students. So what do we learn? We're learning a lot. We keep learning. One thing that I think is important is what helps students drink water at your school. Having water bottles is the #1 thing. So that's been really key. Keep having those vessels, making sure they're quality vessels and that they stay at school. Students learn how to maintain them. And we provide teachers with the resources for cleaning them, for storing them, and how to keep them in the classroom. Some barriers are time, cleanliness. You can kind of see these are our usual suspects. But I think what's important is that in our intervention schools, access to a water bottle really falls down on the list. Certainly still continue to have challenges with that, and classroom procedures have helped overcome that barrier. But overall, we're really learning a lot about continued things to address in the intervention. We also learned that students and staff like it, really positive feedback. They felt they provided enough support. And really what we're paying a lot of attention to now is how can we take all of this information, all of this process data, and understand how can we sustain this intervention. So we've kind of developing our Hydrate RPS virtual toolkits, all the materials for the schools that they're theirs to keep, and really trying to keep the cost down to a minimum as far as kind of what the recurring costs might be. Quick snapshot about where we are. So we're here about to launch our intervention with our cluster 2 schools. So these are 4 new schools receiving the intervention. I've had the pleasure of meeting with the leaders at these schools as we're preparing right now. And then through 27-29 is really when we'll have all of the data from all of the schools and be excited to really be able to report back. Although we'll continue to have annual reports and are happy to share those with you as we receive them. So what happens now? We're reviewing our data with our team and our CAB. We're making some tweaks. We're enhancing the superhero integration through partnership with students. So we're bringing our students back for more meetings in order to develop some cool things around that, which I hope to share with you at some point. We also upgraded our water bottles. There was a couple complaints about them breaking at times. So we're We're happy to have a funder through the Children's Hospital Foundation who found a corporate sponsor for some better quality water bottles. And I mentioned we're kind of reporting back. So as far as sustainability and future support, our overall strategy is capacity building. So how can RPS maintain hydrated RPS with ongoing support, of course, from Fit for Kids and VCU? And how can we partner with RPS to secure funding beyond this NIH grant, so beyond that 27-28 school year? I mentioned we provide this virtual toolkit, we provide all the materials, but annual water bottles are just going to be recurring costs. I think at the end of the year, they really need to go home and that's it. It really should be a one year use. And again, there are many schools that are not receiving hydrated RPS, so we're really working on how can we disseminate hydrated RPS to those other schools who were not randomly selected for participation. And ultimately beyond RPS, kind of how can this program be disseminated and RPS really be a leader in healthy hydration across the nation. Just a quick snapshot about what are those costs. This is the funding that we have secured. So through 27-28 school year, the cost for the water bottles are just shown here. It's just for an idea. You can remove the tax line because we are tax exempt. But just an estimate that it might be about, if all elementary schools had a water bottle with this better quality one, what the funding might be. And I think we've got a lot of, I've talked to Ms. Parks, we have a lot of expertise and experience writing grants and would be more than happy to continue to partner with RPS about searching for corporate sponsors. I've had many say they'd love to see their logo on 26,000 water bottles. Although my requirement is you also have to have a hydrated RPS logo on that. So again, I've just kind of outlined what those sustainability costs are after that future year, so not including the water bottles. They really are pretty minimal. This is you could fill in the numbers and it would calculate it for the school. I used Lowe's Harrison Jones just as an example. So about $1,800 would be the kind of recurring costs. Again, I think very feasible for a small grant to maintain that with some additional costs that teachers liked, which certainly didn't have to be, but again, another $400. I think that's it. Just really thank you for the opportunity to share this work with you and would be open to taking any questions if there's time.
Mr. Farouk, Ms. Burke, Ms. Rizzi.
Good evening. My very quick question is, what was your experience working with the school staff and the kinds of adjustments they'd have to make to allow the water bottles, encourage their use, but also then deal with allowing kids to go refill them, allowing kids to pee more often, things like that?
Right, great question. So we developed classroom procedures in collaboration with our partners about what should be on those classroom procedures. We train teachers in kind of posting these. This is a laminated with, we provide them a dry erase board, dry erase marker, but we ask them to set classroom procedures based on what works best for them. And so when to fill it up, when to clean it, where to store it. We actually saw very few complaints or concerns in our process data. And we report those back to the teachers, as well as tips that teachers are learning about what works well. And then we present that to each new cohort of teachers to say, hey, here's what your peers are doing, here's what worked well. And we just keep generating kind of this bank. But it's really been some of the biggest challenge are schools without sinks in the classrooms. And so we do provide these caddies, and some really cool ideas have come out from different leaders and at schools which have fewer sinks, which about taking, having identified responsible students as a job, and they take those water bottles in the caddy, they designate which student does it, and they work on cleaning them kind of regularly because they do need to be cleaned once a week. But I'm looking forward to this year. This is our first year where we do have 2 schools with fewer sinks in the classroom, so we can really learn from how to iron those procedures out. But overall, it's been actually pretty positive. We really did not. Yeah. I mean, I think I showed you some of the process data, but really it's a policy that they have to be able to, to allow water bottles. And what we try to provide is a kind of a structure to make that successful, because when they were just kind of having water bottles without the structure, it was tough to kind of manage them in a way that worked well for their classrooms.
Thank you, Ms. Burke, and then Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the first day of school at Henry L. Marsh III, I wanted to know what were the signs of the superheroes all throughout the building. I was very pleased with what I saw. Number one, we all know that water bottles really cuts down the traffic of going back and forth to get a sip. Number two, I often think in terms of many of our children that may walk home or the neighborhoods they live in because of living in food deserts. They're privy more so to sugary drinks. So to know that you have water plus your own water bottle means a lot. In fact, at Marsh and a couple of other schools, when asking students what would they want for their treat or whatever, they asked for water bottles. So in the 7th district, and I see you just have one school listed, that concerns me.
Henry Marsh.
Yeah, so I hope moving forward we'll have, because we do have sinks.
Absolutely.
all of our
We'd love to
schools.
include
Yeah.
all of the schools.
Please, absolutely. But United Health has donated water bottles for all of our students. So Henry Marshall will be getting 600, more than what they asked for, in addition to what you're providing. So my last thought with this is, I love the opportunity to, our children seem empowered from what I observed on the first day. In fact, I took some pictures to post. I just haven't had a chance to post it. So I love this program, and we do need to drink more water. So it makes you think better. Yeah, it's necessary, but thank you for this. I hope it does continue as planned.
Thank you. Yes, and Mr. Smith's been a great champion with us and a really great partner.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, even beyond this grant, I'm hoping that this initiative continues. This is great community education. I know growing up, we pretty much only drank water when we were thirsty. That was the kind of, that's what we knew. We didn't really talk about how important hydrating is over regular hydrating is outside of being, when you're thirsty, it's way too late, honestly. And because in the Black community, we are disproportionately impacted by chronic kidney disease, and I myself had to be evaluated for it. It is something I think that we really need to make sure there's a lot of education out and information around. We need to drink water. Our bodies need it. We're something like, 98, 96% water. That's our composition. So we need to understand how important it is for our health. And especially, I think, in our communities where we're so much more likely to develop chronic kidney disease. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for that comment. I will also just note, dental health was a big priority that our community advisory board mentioned, and we do include dental assessments as part of our evaluation, so we can see, are we reducing dental caries with increasing water and hopefully decreasing sugar beverages.
Thank you, Mr. Jafari.
We look at the health issues as well. And I can remember going to school and, don't you put your mouth on that. Don't you let that touch you. So this, if nothing else, this definitely takes that out of it. But look, I'm kind of a mechanical minded person. So I'm wondering, help me with this. I've seen those those stations where you fill them. Take me behind what I'm looking at. Are we looking at filtering the water that normally comes into the building and basically retrofitting the surface of it so that it accommodates the water bottle filling? Tell me about the mechanics behind the picture where we're looking at.
Sure, great question. So so this was not our work, this was RPS's work, where they replaced water fountains with the hydration stations. So the water bottle refill stations, those are preferred for many of the reasons you mentioned. Kids like them more, they taste better, but they basically it's a filter, so cold filtered water comes out of the water bottle refill station. So you place your bottle underneath it and it senses it and it fills the water bottle up. You still do have a water fountain option on the majority of the stations for students who don't have a vessel, but we do know that they're really underused, that really having the vessel is much preferred and is used much more than the water fountain.
Okay, thanks for the explanation. Now I understand why I don't see a recurring fee for water. So we're using what comes into the building anyway.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was a very well-done presentation from top to bottom. I mean, this is excellent. I just have, and I love when a presentation answers the questions before I ask them, because I was gonna ask, what does funding look like beyond 2027 and 2028? And you were on it. So I appreciate that. We will definitely need some grants, I'm sure. So please continue to advocate for that. You did mention that there were 4 more schools that you're about to transition into this program. Just curious as to what 4 schools they are, and I'm hoping that 3 of them are in the 9th. Just
Sure.
wondering.
Our 4 schools this year are oh gosh, Miles Jones.
Well, they're already on the list.
No, sorry, the 12 schools were picked at the beginning.
Okay.
So all of the schools have assessments every year. It's a design called a step wedge randomized controlled trial. And the reason for the strength of this design is you're able to also look at sustainability in future years. So the 4 schools who received the intervention last year will continue to be assessed for 2 more years so we can see which components were sustained and understand that process. So this year we've got 4 more of these 12 will receive it. All 12 will again get the intervention, and then next year, the final 4 will receive the intervention. And again, all 12 will receive the assessments.
So when will you roll it out to all schools?
So the NIH grant covers these 12, and that is what we've developed our Hydrate RPS sustainability toolkit, and we're really looking and working to say what are the elements that we need to retain, because maybe it doesn't have to look as complex as this, although I do think we've simplified it. Yeah. So perhaps we can get costs down even further. And we're just learning a lot about implementation, studying kind of from an implementation science lens. So we can apply for future grants to see, hey, now how can we roll this out? Maybe not as a research study, right, but as a kind of a program and a community partnership.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Job well done. Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving right along, receive an update on staff retention and survey data. Good evening.
I'll note that we have a summary at the end of the presentation for all of our individual schools and their data that you can refer to if you have any specific questions regarding that data. I also want to note that we've shared the satisfaction data with all of our principals, and my team will be joining an upcoming cluster meeting to speak with them a little bit more and dig into the data as needed. Next, I want to share an update on our teacher retention metric. I know that teacher retention is a big question that often comes up. I know it's already come up this evening as part of the Dreams for RPS goals that we have. And there's a couple of important things that I want to note around how we calculate retention, because it may be a little bit different than other places. We want to make sure that we are benchmarking ourselves against the way that the VDOE has previously calculated teacher retention and using their business rules. That means that we have a very specific cut of data that we use. We look at teachers who appear on the end of year master schedule collection from one year to another to determine whether or not they have been retained or if they have attrited out of the organization. A couple of notes there. First off, the end of year master schedule collection primarily is made up of what we would traditionally consider classroom teachers. However, there are a couple of other groups of individuals that may appear there as well, including long-term subs or folks like our guidance counselors. In this presentation, I'm collectively referring to this group as teachers, but I do want to note that having different groups in the metric does change the way the metric is calculated a little bit. The next thing that I want to note about the teacher retention metric we use is that it is a lagging indicator. What that means is in the current year, we are always calculating their teacher retention from the previous year. So as of this presentation, we did not have the end of year master schedule collection finalized for school year 24-25. As a result, we are going to present preliminary data that is based on the fall master schedule collection. This gives us a pretty good sense of teachers at the end of school year 23-24 who returned in school year 24-25. But it's important to note that over the course of the year, we have some teachers who do leave the organization, and we also have some teachers who return. Once we have the final master schedule collection finalized, we'll make sure to provide an update on what that data is, as well as provide the various cuts of data that I know the board and other members of the community are interested in. Our preliminary data for those who returned in school year 24-25 is at 81%. So again, these are individuals who are on the end of year master schedule collection in school year 23-24 who returned in the fall of school year 24-25. As you can see, we have been generally consistent over the last few years, but I do want to note one last thing about this metric that I think is really important. Let's say we have someone who is a long-term sub that's calculated on the master schedule collection. And in the following year, we actually filled that role with a full-time teacher. That individual is not calculated as retained. They're actually calculated as attrited because they're no longer on that schedule. So I do think it's important as we move forward with the strategic plan, particularly our action plan 2.1 around reaching zero teacher vacancies, that some fluctuation in this number is anticipated as we ensure that we have all of our classrooms fully staffed. The last thing that I want to share with you all is an update on our employee exit surveys. There are two primary exit surveys that we administer to our staff, depending on the type of role that they have. The first is a fully external survey that's administered by the Metropolitan Education Research Consortium, or MERC. This survey is a fully optional survey in terms of the questions that are provided, and they are also only distributed to teachers only. So my team tracks when we have a teacher that's leaving the organization and ensures that they receive an email upon their departure with that link. We also administer the RPS exit survey, which is distributed to all employees, not just our teachers, but all of our folks who are instructional support, non-teaching school-based staff, and central office. This survey has 5 mandatory questions, all of which are aligned to VDOE requirements. And again, these are distributed via email when an employee chooses to leave. I do also want to note that our Employee and Labor Relations team offers exit interviews to employees who are leaving. And this past year, we had 17 employees participate in those interviews. I want to provide some summary data from both the MERC survey as well as the RPS exit survey. We've tried to summarize up the reasons for leaving into a set of categories. And you'll see that for school year 24-25, we had 39 respondents to the MERC survey. 70% of those who were leaving indicated that culture and climate is their #1 reason. Personal is second, and then compensation and benefits and career advancement is third. For our RPS exit survey, we had 53 respondents over the course of the year. Personal reasons was listed as the #1 reason for leaving, with compensation and benefits and career advancement being second. And finally, employee preparation and support being listed as third. I want to note that I'm very excited about the year ahead and all of the work that we are planning on doing around satisfaction. I'm proud to say that I am the action lead for Action 2.5, which is customer service. I know that we actually included some questions on customer service in this past survey for central office, and we'll be sharing some of that data in an upcoming presentation once we get to me. But I'm really excited by the work that we've been able to lay the groundwork for over the last few years, and can't wait to see where we're able to go as we proceed moving forward. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have. I'll proceed from there.
Mr. Hedgepath, Mr. Jafari, Dr. Harris Mohammed. Oh, okay, Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Very appreciative of your presentation. The first question I have is, and I apologize if I missed this, but on page 3, why is the N size a third smaller from 2024-25 back to the 21-22? Is there an idea about that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we need to note. Of course, participation in the survey is completely voluntary. And while we do send reminders throughout the administration period and also try to do a push for completion, the reality is that year over year, we have a different response rate each time. I will note that the staff response rate is up from the previous year. And so I do believe that we had some folks properly align themselves in the correct role as opposed to previous years. However, that does, of course, not account for the entire amount that you're referencing. So I do think that it's a mix of both of those factors.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Follow up. Also then, I appreciate that. Thank you. When I was looking at the individual school scores, and some of our overall scores are definitely improving, and I appreciate you highlighting that, but there are some that are abysmal and that are really worrying me. And I hear that you're talking about that there'll be cluster meetings that'll occur and there'll be some breakdown of that data. But West Hills Elementary in particular, one of my schools, is frightening, that data. So I really want to know how are we going to handle that going forward. I see Dr. Wiggins coming up now, so thank you.
Good evening. I'll take some of the program questions. So I have also gone through all of the data for all of the schools in which I support. And so there are some that we have concerns about as well, that we will be working with administration to really dig a little deeper. So we have this survey that we have, but like for some of the questions, we need to go a little deeper as to how don't you feel supported? Like what are some of the ways that we can help you feel more supported? Or, you know, for some of, as you went through some of the questions, do you feel safe? Like, in what ways don't you feel safe? And what ways can we help that to happen? So even though this data is a great place to start, I really want to go deeper with the staff And that's exactly what our principal directors will start doing now that we have the data to be able to go through. I have my list of schools, the ones that we want to help the administrators to just see where exactly they can put more effort into working around where the people in their schools are feeling a little bit not seen. And so we want to work on those things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fari.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Mr. Bishop, thanks for the presentation. I'm looking here, and I guess I'm assuming, I'm looking at this screen here, that roughly 500 separations is across the entire division. Did we do any comparisons regionally as to, what others, is there any way that we would know that information? And can we see how it stacks up or ranks as compared to our regional sisters schools?
That's a good question, and I know that my team has had the opportunity to look into that, but I do think having a comparison would be helpful in that.
Help us get some perspective.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We appreciate the feedback as we're looking to expand our work in this area.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering what you're doing to encourage response rates. I kind of detect a trend that when response rates are above 75, the numbers tend to trend a little lower. There are a few exceptions to that. But, I mean, when we're getting like 38%, that's not really necessarily a good snapshot of what's happening in the schools. And in fact, there's one that's got a really low response rate, and the numbers are like crazy high, like 100%. And I'm like, okay, but that's 20% of evidently the teachers in the school. And so I'm just wondering, so that we have some measure of reliability, what are you doing to encourage the response rate? Or what, I don't know who should be doing that, but I'm wondering about how those responses are being encouraged. Then I had another question that I circled, and I don't, my notes are getting kind of confusing.
So while you're looking for your notes, if you want
Yeah,
me
go
to
ahead
go ahead
and
and
answer
answer
that
that question. One of the things, and we have great administrators in our school division, but one of the things that we also noticed is that in some of our schools, the percentages are low. And so sometimes it's kind of hard to determine that, how many of the staff really feel this way. And so I think that's why we really need to go deeper. And I believe in a feedback loop beyond this that our administration needs to do on a regular basis to hear from their staff and how they feel. One of the things that we also looked at is the question that I helped to make decisions in my school about instruction. That was one of the ones I also want to dig a little deeper into. But one of the things we have not done is really encourage staff, like we send it out and we just, those that will do. But I think this year, Solomon and I want to join in to like really pushing, because I don't think it's right coming from the principal themselves, that we need to step in and just kind of really encourage staff to really just give their opinion so we can hear from everyone, so everybody's voice can be heard, and where our participation rate can go into 75, 80, 85% more so than 40%, 50%, because that's just a fraction of the staff. And so that is where we feel like we need to step in, and also maybe put it in the direct as well, so that they know that it's something we really do want to hear from them.
And I'll add, as we look at some of the secondary schools, particularly two of them, we've been proactive and actually work with the new school leader to ensure that they create an environment based on some of the feedback that we heard from staff members as we selected the new leaders. And so we've been proactively, Dr. Waller and Dr. Bell and myself been working with them so that we don't have low numbers and they're being proactive versus reactive.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear, people have reached out and said, hey, if I fill this out, will people know who I am and will I face any retaliation? I think that there's some concern. I mean, I don't know what you're doing to like assuage people's concerns with that, but that's definitely something I've heard. And then you actually are answering my second question, which was, how are you using this data? What will you do? Yeah.
Yes, and every year we look at that. That becomes a part of the conversation. We talk about culture and climate. That's really big for us. It's not just with the students. It is the culture and climate of the staff, because people who feel good about coming to work, who feel valued, who feel heard, will do a much better job. And we always know there is going to be some people who maybe don't, this is not the right fit, and maybe another school or another neighborhood or another community is better. So we know we have that as well. But we also want to support our administrators in knowing that we are here to assist them in helping to build that culture and climate. Chief Parks and her team, they do a really good job, not just that with the students, but we work on building that culture and climate. And our principal directors also work with our school leaders in building that culture and climate around the staff. So that's a lot of the work we do, and it's a lot more of the work we want to do in making sure that people feel valued at coming to work. That is just a hallmark of people should be smiling coming in and smiling going home. So that's what we are shooting for. And in the meantime, our students are learning at a high level, because that's the other part of it too.
Thank you, Mr. Percival. Then Mr. Card, then you can slide me down.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for this, Mr. Bishop. Just following up on Mr. Hedgepeth's questions, he had almost all of mine covered. Going back to slide 3 again, in addition to the 30% drop and then 25% drop over year, there's also a missing year in the report. 22, 23?
I believe there was 1 year where the survey was not administered.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ms. Ricard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing I wanted to bring up that I heard from staff is in pertains to low, perchance maybe the shrinking N size, is that some of them felt that in past years they filled out this survey and it's just kind of gone into the abyss and it's never been reported back to them. They've never seen anything like that. And it might just be that they've missed it. I'm not saying it wasn't done. But I think this report shows that these are the results. And I think, yeah, if we could share this out in the HR, the talent ed email to make sure that our staff sees it, I think when they see the results of their surveys, they will be more likely to fill it out. And then, Dr. Wiggins, I appreciate you elaborating on the conversations you're going to have with administrators. I agree that this is just one data point. It's not the be all and end all of how things are going in their schools. I think it's a conversation of what truths are in this, what are we missing, what supports you need. Let's also look at teacher attendance in your schools, because that will speak to it. Let's look at retention in your schools. All of that, I think, makes the conversation much more robust and not just you're doing a good job, you're doing a bad job because of this. And I know those are the conversations you're having, and I just wanted to give voice to that. I think this is one data point. It's a valuable data point, but there are many other things that tell the story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll continue to, we have in the past, we did not want to make it such a huge point that it becomes the center of everything in the school. So we've tended to talk to the administrators about it more. It has been presented, of course, to the school board at different times, but we can look at the way in which we share it with the staff so they do understand that their voice is being heard. So we will look into that.
Thank you, Dr. Harris Mohammed.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions and a comment. When was the master record collection due? Are you aware of that date?
It was due on August 22nd.
Okay. And so because we had to pull data from the 23-24 school year because the MRC was not quite whatever, it could be multiple reasons that is not whatever. It could be multiple reasons, but so how is that giving us accurate information on what we need to know right now?
So it was due on the 22nd. They had to
Sure.
go back in and make a few adjustments to it. And
Like
so,
many divisions do.
so the state
not just
opened the
us.
window up, but we've recently submitted
Mhm.
it. So we can definitely bring you back the accurate data from this year because it has been submitted to VDOE.
Right, that would be helpful.
Yep.
Right, that would be helpful. So we're discussing, it was shared about participation, right? And so first of all, thank you for this. I'm one of the board members that have really been interested on what our staff feels, what they think, and why they stay with RPS, and also why they leave RPS, right? And so one of the things that I think is very important is that how a governance team handles situations of concern from the staff, classified or certified, doesn't matter how we identify them on record. What matters is how the governance team addresses their concerns and what that process looks like. That is a number one stunner of how staff will participate in any survey we put out. So they are watching how we address their concerns. Individuals in any field will, just like a young person will, they will rise to the occasion if they, one, know the process, and if they trust the process. So if there is any inkling that the process is not equitable across the board, whatever, we could be talking about delivering textbooks. I'm just saying. If it's not the same across the board, then they're going to walk away feeling there's no process for me, so I am not going to complete that because my voice is not heard. Teachers, administrators, certified or classified staff are the main group of people who use I messages.
30 seconds.
I feel, I need, I desire, right? The last thing is I recommend compiling a survey just for central office staff only and separate from building administrators because the work, the role, the needs are different. And when you have everybody completing the same survey, your data is skewed. So that's my recommendation. Thank you.
And Dr. Harris Muhammad, I think, Ms. Ricard, you said it earlier. It's really about, we're going to actually have this presented earlier at the cluster meetings. I'm going to give them clear baseline expectations in terms of responding to staff members' concerns. Now, if your school has 5 concerns, you may not be able to address all 5 at one time well, right? But let's focus on 2 to 3 and share that data out with folks quarterly at staff meetings and other places so that they do feel that they're being heard and that we're also being responsive. And so with that, we will bring back the data because we did submit the master schedule collection, so we'll bring that data back to you, but also we'll have a clear baseline process for principals because we do have some of our principals that give their own surveys like quarterly, and they look at that data with their leadership team and they make adjustments based on it. But we will standardize the process. So thank you for the feedback.
Another thing I wanted to add, also when looking at my elementary schools, most of the ones that are identified are also ones that are federally identified. So that also shows that it is not just about the school leader, it's about how we in central office are supporting those schools as well. And so that is one of the pieces, and that is why we have our team in central office going in supporting those schools first, because if we are going to lift them, we are going to need to lift them together. We don't want to put a cape on a person and say, you're the superhero, you go in and save everything. When there is a heavy lift, it takes all of us to make sure that we're lifting. And so that is where my team in the academic office is making sure those schools are prioritized this school year. So I don't want you to feel like it's just the leader. It is also what we're doing to support the leader and the staff as well.
Thank you. I just have a few thoughts / questions and suggestions. I appreciate this. In my day job, we have surveys like this every year. They make it very big. Our manager encourages leading up to it, encourages very positively. We need your feedback. That's the only way that we can grow. So when I see these numbers, I see opportunities. I don't necessarily see negatives or failures. I just see this is where we can really thrive. One of my suggestions is what we did at my 9-to-5 job, is look for someone in the schools that is extremely positive, and if they're looking for like stretch assignments or some type of leadership, and create peer-to-peer cohorts. Take your top 3 successes and your lowest 3 and have them gain insight from a peer's perspective and then report out. Because a lot of times I was a part of that. I was one of the ones that was chosen to be a part of that work, and it does make a difference when it's coming from a peer versus from their boss or their leader. It just does. And you can still do all the other things that you all are sharing, but this might be another way for you to gain insight that you may not normally get from people who may not feel as comfortable with sharing it freely. I am very interested in you bringing back the data from the VDOE. But I just want to say that, you know, when we look at this, it gives us a good opportunity to really get insight. I see myself as more of like a servant leader. And so these types of things like draw me in. And so I would suggest you find those type of leaders within your schools that could kind of help to rally the troops, bring some excitement around the surveys, get the word out. Ice cream socials, we're gonna do the survey and, get an ice cream bar. I don't know, just create ways to make it fun and convey to them that by doing this survey, it helps us become better. But on the other side of that, what I would love to see with these types of reports moving forward is what you've assessed and what plans you have in place to address some of those actions. So if you have that, cause and response, then they see that change. Have that community meeting to say, hey, here's what we saw and this is what we're doing to support it. They do that at my job all the time and it's very effective. Ms. Burke.
Thank you. I just want to thank you all. This was great information, and I really appreciate the manner in which Dr. Wiggins, we all are over here saying, mm-hmm. But thank you so much, because it's not a I got you situation, which is, as educators, we should be open to improving and enhancing collectively. Otherwise, why do we have all these different layers in place to support? So I really appreciate your looking at the data from Mr. Bishop and moving forward as a team, we're going to do all we can to address, because sometimes people come to school not with smiles for a reason, and it may not have anything to do with school. So what's the plan in place for that? As well as you stated earlier, meeting with the principals, but also with, sometimes you have persons that you can, I like what you said, different communities or whatever, different settings. So at the end of the day, it's not about I got you or pointing the finger, but it's about collaboration and the opportunity to be in support, developing relationships. So, why fill out a form if you're not going to get any feedback, which is what Ms. Ricard was speaking about earlier. So this is going to, I think, make a difference. And I'm glad Ms. Rizzi stated what she stated, because when I see a 43-year-old, I said, wait a minute, go back, what does this mean? So those are persons who are looking at the data also need to be cognizant of, because sometimes we go right to the numbers and not the labels at the top, because we're busy people. Thank you so much. Well done.
One last question. Was there a reason why for the survey there's not open comment sections underneath there is? Was that data collected in here and I just missed it?
No, we did not share that data in this particular presentation. We stuck with the traditional metrics that we've shared previously.
In the future, if you could include that somehow, compile, I know it's a lot, but if there's a way to compile it, that would be great for us to kind of get an insight on with the feedback they're receiving.
We appreciate the feedback
you.
on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, up next we have, we're almost there, folks. 4.03, receive an update on staff mental health services. This is something I've been advocating for a very long time, so I'm really excited about this presentation. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school board, and Superintendent Cameras. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about an issue that directly impacts the well-being of our educators, staff, and ultimately our students, employee mental health. When we talk about mental health resources, we mean the tools, programs, and supports that help employees take care of their emotional and psychological health. These include services like confidential counseling, stress management coaching, crisis intervention, and wellness programs that promote balance and resilience. Mental health resources matter because they provide essential support to address challenges before they escalate, improve overall health, enhance productivity, and reduce absenteeism. By making help accessible and breaking down stigma, they encourage early intervention and normalize seeking care. We are proud to partner, with Cigna to provide comprehensive mental health resources for our employees and their families. The Cigna Employee Assistance Program is a confidential, no-cost benefit to support employees and their household members with personal and work-related challenges. These services are separate from the medical plan. I'd like to highlight the first two benefits that are available through EAP. The first being counseling and emotional support. Offers short-term, solution-focused counseling up to 6 sessions per issue. Available face-to-face or virtually with personalized help for stress, anxiety, family challenges, relationships, and more. Includes 24/7 crisis triage and support, ensuring help is available when needed most. Second, are critical incident response services. Rapid deployment of licensed mental health professionals on site or virtually after a traumatic workplace event. Facilitated debrief sessions for affected employees to process events, manage stress reactions, and receive emotional support. Group and one-on-one counseling options are available, and follow-up sessions and resources are available for ongoing support. The EAP also provides work-life resources and referrals, legal and financial assistance, career and job support, online and mobile tools, and support for managers. In addition to the Employee Assistance Program, staff who are enrolled in the Cigna medical plans have access to the Cigna Total Behavioral Health Program. Cigna Total Behavioral Health goes beyond traditional counseling and provides a wide range of specialized support for employees at different stages of life and with varying needs. It offers integrative proactive care across settings, complex case and specialty support, behavioral and lifestyle coaching, virtual and digital access, personalized high-touch navigation, and ease of access and support tools. Cigna Total Behavioral Health is an all-in-one, flexible, and clinically robust program aimed at supporting behavioral health through every channel. Mental health is a cornerstone of wellness. When staff have all of the tools to manage stress, access counseling, and practice healthy habits, they are better able to show up fully in their work and personal lives. Cigna offers a wide range of wellness programs designed to help employees live healthier, more balanced lives, reducing overall healthcare costs. These include personalized health coaching and lifestyle programs for weight management, tobacco cessation, and stress reduction. Together, these initiatives boost employee well-being, increase engagement, and promote a healthier, more productive workforce. This past school year, RPS delivered practical, no-cost or low-cost wellness programs aimed at reducing stress, encouraging sustainable habits, and celebrating the collective effort it takes to take care of ourselves and the greater RPS community. We offered biometric screening vouchers. We had fruit and healthy snack deliveries to all of our schools. And we did that again this year, and those were delivered last week to every single one of our schools. We offered Agriberry Farm vouchers to many markets that we had here in City Hall. We gave vouchers for our employees to take with them to the Lakeside Farmers Market. And we had that vendor available at the staff appreciation event that was held in May. We paid for registration fees for the Monument Avenue 10K. I think we paid for about 150 employees. And every participant received a t-shirt and fanny packs. And the school or department that had the highest participation rate received HelloFresh meal kits. So that was super exciting. And back to hydration, we did have a hydration challenge last year. And randomly selected employees received Stanley Cups and Amazon gift cards. So we are on track to offer those same things, those same events this year. We will offer 3-month memberships to Weight Watchers. We did that the year prior, but we are going to bring that back this year. And something else that we're working on is Cigna is giving us 3 blood pressure machines that we can place at any of our locations. So I would love your feedback on where we can place those 3 blood pressure machines.
Good evening. Angela Jones with Culture, Climate, and Student Services. And we just wanted to tap in here because we book in the services that Allison just shared with you all. So I wanted to share on the front end, because when I speak of mental health, I speak of the full continuum, right? We promote basic positive mental health, just like we promote good nutrition. And so I wanted to share just a quick update. Back in 2022, post-COVID, we were, our leader here granted us some funds through the ESSER funds to set up staff wellness spaces in all of our schools. Each school was granted $3,000, and we actually curated a list. Our trauma team created a list that covered our 5 senses, so that something had to be purchased at least to cover each of the 5 senses. And I'll just let you know, the massage chairs and the bicycles were the most popular things, and a couple Keurigs and some tea as well. And so all the schools were able to set up a room to their liking. They created teams to do that. We also partnered at the time with SCAN, Stop Child Abuse Now, who helped work with each of our schools to help, we called activate the rooms, to kind of do a quick training on how to use those things to help support any staff member who needed to tap in or out during some of their most stressful times. I will say we did check in. So obviously our ESSER funds expired, and so we do not have the funds to keep those rooms, keep the materials fresh in those rooms from our funds. Several of the schools have been able to tap into PTA funds or other partners. If you haven't been over to the room at MLK, they're just phenomenal. I said, we only bought 1 bike. Why do we see 3? Or things of that nature. But we did check in this summer to see kind of what the status was of those rooms. 31 schools responded to our quick survey. 28 indicated they still have active wellness spaces. Many of them have started to double them up, and you see the data there that 16 are now using them as their break room and staff lounge. Our goal was to have 2 separate spaces if we could, so that you weren't necessarily heating up your lunch in the same space you were trying to decompress. We have not been able to maintain all of those, but some of the rooms, some of the schools that have more space, like JL Francis is really struggling. They're bursting at the seams, right? And so trying to be creative about that space. They use it really for decompression, hosting wellness activities, staff breaks, just kind of tapping in and out. But full transparency, we do not have the funds to keep those rooms going. And so we are always seeking other thoughts about how we can keep those spaces going. Because we did discover, especially after a scan pulled out, that schools were really looking for that ability to kind of tap out. A lot of our teachers and other staff members have asked for that. On the flip side of this is where we also step in moments of crisis. So Allison shared with you how we partner with EAP in a moment of crisis. But in those fresh moments or when things are happening at the time, our team does step in the same way that we plan and step in for children, we step in for staff. And we offer all kinds of different supports as it's listed up there, whether it's individual staff support, just like we set up a space. We ask principals as we're coming in for a space, usually in the media center to set up for children. We usually get someplace like the conference room to set up for staff who may need additional support. We also have, sadly, because we're a division that experiences quite a bit of trauma, we actually have a set of community circle prompts that we use if a school wants to engage in a community circle to kind of brief or debrief. And we offer support we'll stand with principals to brief and debrief with their staff to kind of get through those moments. And that's typically like in a grief kind of situation, loss of a student. We just had one. We set up in 4, 5 schools the first week of school, or staff of a loss of a staff member. In those moments, and although we do have superheroes as staff members in our division, they are still human. And there are moments when they may be experiencing a mental health experience. And again, we will step in, our team will step in to help stabilize the situation. If it's an individual staff member, we collaborate immediately with employee relations, with benefits. We also often, if the situation is serious enough, we will call in RBHA or crisis. CREST, who we often use with our children, it does also have adult services. It's a regional crisis stabilization service, and we'll use that as necessary for our team members. I do want to note it is, and it can become a conflict of interest for our phenomenal, highly skilled staff of mental health professionals to actually provide services to their colleagues. So we are cautious about how far we go with that, because people in a moment of crisis sometimes share things that maybe their coworkers shouldn't have access to. So we're very cautious about how we support. Our goal is to stabilize and get connected to the next supports. So that's kind of where we fit in. Any questions?
Mr. Hedgepath?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Davis, Ms. Jones, very much for the presentation. As you alluded to, teachers and educators generally are so giving and don't know when to say no oftentimes. And so it's really important for us to take care of number one before we can take care of others. So I appreciate that. This is a robust collection of supports, and so I'm very appreciative to see that. I'm just curious, how do you survey the staff to understand exactly what they value and what they want as far as the benefits that come along with their job?
Great question. Mr. Bishop and I were discussing about adding more specific questions like that to the employee satisfaction survey. So we will, definitely add more things like that, because we do want the feedback of our employees about what they need, what they want, what they like, what they don't. So we will be including more questions in the employee satisfaction survey.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Dr. Harris Mohammed.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think the governance team could use a blood pressure scanner pump thing. I also think we need a couple of those chairs, Keurig seats, like at each of our seats, a mini Keurig tea type thing. You know, just thinking out of the box, yeah, to help. Uh, you all are laughing, but I'm serious. And so I think that because we have to model the practice of balanced mental health. And so that starts with us. And I just think that this is also close and dear to my heart. And also being able to have town halls that maybe the governance team, I'm always a component of, out in the community talking about the glows and grows of the work that we're doing. And so I look forward to teaming with you all to talk about that work within my district. Thank you.
Ms. Burke and Ms. Ricard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all and your colleagues in your departments as well. Things certainly have changed over the years. We always speak about protecting our children, but do we take care of ourselves? So I love the fresh whatever boxes you all had, and it was also great to read all that and to hear all that you all have done, because oftentimes in our haste, we don't hear that. So I appreciate this report. Now, the rooms in the schools, beyond the lounges, we're going to keep those. Just seeing them, they all are beautiful. I mean, it's just a different atmosphere, different climate. You know, usually in teacher lounges, the conversation may be different, but when you go to that room of peacefulness, and the last time I was in, I try to go to all of them whenever I go into school. We just sat there and we made, I think I said this before, a scan came in and we made deodorizers. In fact, yeah, and it was just nice to sit there and talk with the other persons, and the eucalyptus was flowing, and it was just a different level of conversation. I loved it. So when we love things that's given to us, we take care of them and make them happy, make each other happy. So I'm sure they're not going anywhere in spite of not having the funds. Resources is very evident. The rooms are well kept. So thank you for that. Well done.
Thank you, Ms. Ricard, and then Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question of all the EAP resources are wonderful. How often are they kind of reshared with staff to remind them that they're there? Also, I'm just thinking of, I'm sure it was shared with first-year teachers, but that whole week is a blur. Could they have a reminder about it maybe halfway through the year when maybe they are starting to feel a little more stressed that things are for them?
Absolutely. We send EAP and behavioral health resources mailers home about 4 to 5 times per year because we know that it's, extremely important. So we do send those about 4 to 5 times per year.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just have to recognize that dress. It's so like, so like my style. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Okay. Sorry. um, um, yeah, I do want to comment on those rooms. They are really, really nice. I'm impressed with, how they have been designed and how each individual school has kind of personalized them. I had a colleague when I was teaching middle school who used to go into our lounge and take a nap during his planning I'm sure teachers aren't doing that necessarily, but they're very calming, and I know our teachers appreciate them. And I just want to say thank you to both of you for all of the work that you do.
So this is very near and dear to my heart. I won't share the name, but I remember my freshman year in high school, I had a basketball coach who approached me about becoming a co-captain of the basketball team. And I was like, why would you choose me? I didn't really see what he saw in me. This is when I went to TJ. And he said, because there's leadership in you. And he was like one of 2 teachers that really honed in on that. I remember after my JV year, I stopped playing basketball. I'd rather graduate, so I graduated a little bit early, but I saw him later on in life. And he asked me how I was doing, and I shared all of the things that were going great with me, and he kind of shook his head and was super proud. Years later, he was investigated for suicide. And so this topic is very important to me. When I see how many children are losing their lives in RPS alone, it just doesn't impact the students and the families, but it impacts the teachers. And I just wonder, like, he was such a great light. He was such a wonderful person. He was always giving. I remember he used to give me rides home because my mom couldn't, give me transportation back because she worked late. And so as we think about mental health services for teachers, just think about those who might be suffering in silence. There are so many that may raise their hand and say, hey, I need help, but there's so many more that just push through. And if we could think about ways that we can tap into those resources, I believe those mailers are a great addition, but perhaps, a reminder if someone, hopefully we don't have any more deaths this year, hopefully, God. But if we were to have some type of traumatic experience, maybe it's automatic to say, hey, we do have EAP services available, to look into the whites of their eyes to say, and pull them away and say, hey, are you okay? And so this is really why this is extremely important to me. And I don't think it was necessarily anyone's fault, but I wonder, like, maybe at that time I saw him all those years later, I can't even remember
30 seconds.
if I asked him how he was doing. And so that's just a gut check for me, but it should be a gut check for everybody else. And then I also would like to share for those that are in the 9th District principals, if you are one of the ones that have the lounge and you need I'm happy to put district funds towards those efforts. It may not be, $3,000, but I'm happy to contribute in any way that I can to support those efforts because we all need a breather every once in a while. But thank you all for all that you do. I know it's heavy work, but it's much appreciated. Mr. Farouk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if you already went over it, but at some point I would love to see some utilization data of how many of our staff actually use some of these services. And I'll also just point out that education is a calling and a field that is inherently kind of consuming, and a lot of our staff pour their hearts into their work. And as we've all talked many times in our meetings, there are many challenges and many situations that our staff find themselves in that really hurts your heart at times. And we use phrases like family. We talk about the RPS family, but as you've mentioned, this is a job. And so I would love to, in addition to the utilization data, maybe we can at some point talk about what are barriers to people actually using the services and what can we do to make the utilization easier and better. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next up, we have 4.04, receive update on 4x4 schedule and advanced placement classes.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, School Board Member, Superintendent Cameras. Given the hour, I will hit the highlights and I'll take any questions that folks have. But I did want to give you some background on the 4x4 schedule. We started the 2020-21 school year. Principals came to us with this idea about of using the 4x4 because they had heard of other districts that were districts of improvement using it, and they saw that they were getting results. And so we listened to our principals and we started the path of doing research to determine whether this would be a fit for us. So the 4x4, essentially, our scholars take 4 courses for 90 minutes, but they take them every day for a semester. And this is very different to what we had in the past. What we had in the past, we actually had alternating classes where they would go to 4 classes on an A day and 4 classes on a B day. So with that, there are some benefits that I'll talk about with having the 4x4 and that consistency versus the A-B alternating schedule. And so essentially, students can actually get a full year of coursework in a semester. And then they also take the SOL immediately after that, right? And so that was one of the reasons we moved to that, because if kids had to retain the information for the entire year, there was some challenges with them passing SOLs, right, and retention. And so, next slide, please. And so here are the benefits of the 4x4. And of course, as I said, we did research. We also looked at districts that actually, Hopewell actually uses it. We also, there's some other districts that use it. And we wanted to learn from them how it worked. And so with that, the continuity is what I spoke about in terms of seeing your teacher every day helps to also build relationships. It also eliminates the confusion that kids had about which class do I go to today? Is it an A day? Is it a B day? Even though as school leaders, we do some very creative things, it does cause confusion for scholars, teachers, as well as families, right? And then the other piece is just in terms of this whole idea of deeper learning, and this whole piece around relationship building also was a key piece for us. But I think the highlight for us as being a district of improvement and focusing on increasing graduation and SOL performance, so the numbers and the increase and the rise that we continue to see, I believe has contributed to the schedule, right? And so essentially, kids get a chance to actually recover credits. They don't have to wait an entire year if they fail a course. They can actually take that course the next semester. Next slide, please. So part of it is many people will say, hey, this schedule really benefits students, and I can see how it benefits students, but it doesn't necessarily benefit teachers. I mean, that's some of the feedback that we've heard, and we anticipated that barrier as we looked at the research. But of course, we've done some things to prepare for that. First thing that we had to do was to make sure that we adjusted our curriculum, right? Because our curriculum was actually built on the A-B schedule. So we actually went back to redo our pacing and our curriculum to ensure that it aligned with the 4x4 schedule, but also that we built some time in for remediation and intervention before kids took the SOLs. And then the piece in terms of, we talk about our kids going on to post-secondary and going on to college. If you look at most colleges, that is the schedule that they have. The kids have semester courses. So we also felt that that would benefit our scholars. So next slide, please. So this was just a survey. I won't go through the survey that we gave out in 2023. And I'll let you look at the data. Next slide. So these are the challenges that we have been working through proactively. And if you talk to any principal, high school principal, they will tell you that we've met like at least 3 times a year to talk about the challenges. And so, for example, Open High is not on a 4x4 because of the structure of the school community, Franklin, and also this year we're actually piloting at Huguenot High School, and I'll talk about it momentarily, the whole idea of locked blocks. But essentially, the one thing that we did realize is that schools needed flexibility. So the flexibility that we gave schools, comprehensive schools, was if you have the staffing complement to have AP courses full year, by all means do that, right? We also, there are certain courses, maybe like AP biology, as we looked at the results, we felt like they may have needed an entire year, supported school leaders as long as they gave us a justification as to why they wanted to do it. So we did build in that flexibility. But again, as it relates to the AP courses, the locked blocks, we will pilot at Huguenot High School and also see how well it works. But again, all this is contingent upon funding and staffing complements to be able to do AP courses year long. And also, it's also about having qualified teachers that also have the ability and certification to actually teach the AP courses. And if you know anything about AP courses, I mean, students can actually earn college credit if they get a qualifying score, right? And so with that, just understand that a kid that takes AP, if they pass the course, it looks good on their resume, right? And say, for example, they don't get a qualifying score, they still pass, and it's a rigorous course, but we really want our scholars to actually get college credit for it, but also understand that it varies by institution. For example, UVA, you have to score 4 in order to get college credit. With some other institutions, you score 3, and they give you credit. And so with that, we've also provided a lot of support for teachers in terms of professional learning. Also, as I talked about the pacing and the curriculum, we've made the adjustments there. And then also, as teachers always do, they get together during their planning blocks to discuss how to support students in AP. Next slide, please. And here's the piece that I want to clarify. So with AP courses, College Board sets up that the exam can only be given at the end of the year. We really wish that they could actually do it like in the fall and in the spring, but of course we don't make those rules, right? It's a national piece. However, what we do at the end of each semester, we provide for them, and we've been doing this for years, but we've been more intentional now that we moved to the 4x4, providing a week of intervention. Like we've had some classes on Saturday provided by NIMSI for students to opt into. But again, with that, we'll be more intentional about ensuring that we get more students there and the students that really need the support to be successful with the AP courses. So really and truly, as we look at the 4x4, and I will wholeheartedly say this, my 27 years in education, like part of it is we know that a Bell schedule and a master schedule can also determine the climate and culture of the school as well as the acceleration of a school. And so we did a lot of research. We've had a lot of conversations with principals around adjustments to master schedule and the whole piece with AP. And so I wholeheartedly believe that this is why we continue to get results. And I believe if we stick with it, we'll continue to get even more results. So I'm happy to take any questions that folks have.
Ms. Ricard, Dr. Harris Mohammed, Ms. Rizzi, Mr. Hedgepath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel because the 4x4 is having success, I feel this almost speaks to the need for more dual enrollment classes as a counter, like as an alternative to AP. One, it's actually more solid credit for these kids if they're going to Virginia universities. They're not having to bank it all on one test, which depending on the day is going to go or not go their way. But I believe then the dual enrollment can do the 4x4. So it's also just better for our kids. Now I know there's a huge investment with dual enrollment, but I feel like if we feel the 4x4 is really working for us, then maybe dual enrollment is really what we need to start working for.
And unfortunately, Cassandra Bell is not here, but she was really excited about speaking to dual enrollment because we actually are offering some dual enrollment classes this year. And so again, we hope to expand those options next year. But furthermore, we've also explored the whole idea of bringing, such as they do at Henrico, is bringing some of those dual enrollment classes on campus. So we actually did have some teachers that were interested in the past. We had a challenge getting teachers, and because of the requirements and certification, I think we actually had about 4 teachers that were interested across the district. And so we'll continue to push that because I do believe that that will get us more bang for our buck and it'll benefit our scholars ultimately.
Yes. And yes, that's what I envision is how can we actually get dual enrollment with our teachers on campus. I know, yeah, there are additional, they have to have a master's in the actual content area that they're teaching, which not all of them have. But I think that would be a great way to offer an alternative to AP.
And we're working with engagement to kind of do a campaign to get teachers excited about it. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Harris Mohammed.
Thank you so very much. So the data can speak volumes to work like this. And for several years in 2021, 2022, 2023, I specifically remember the superintendent providing correspondence directly from the Office of School Quality on their reporting when they visited our schools under a school improvement plan or who were under some type of watch for subject matter, culture and climate, but particularly for curriculum and instruction. There were several correspondences not typed from the superintendent, but from the Office of School Equality team that said, one of the reasons why you are progressing is because you changed how you were instructing kids. So they spoke very highly of us adjusting our Bell schedule from the traditional 7-day to the 4x4. because it directly impacted in 2022 our 2021 graduation data. We were coming right off of COVID. Our 2023 data directly spoke to our 2022 graduation data. It was moving percentage-wise. Did it make this huge umbrella change? It didn't make a huge umbrella change, but it made some changes because we were thinking out of the box, and we were intentional about, we were thinking about our graduation cohort, and I know I'm gonna mispronounce this, but our centers that directly supported our Latino population. But I don't think what we realized as a school division is that we were actually going to end up right here with a continual progression of catching students who failed a particular course in one semester and would not have to wait a whole year because they weren't classified up. They were still classified at that grade level. A 4x4 schedule impacts not just a graduation rate, but it impacts classification. And so it's not about what are we going to do in 90 minutes or the 88 or the 86 minutes.
30 seconds.
It is about how are we going to impact student outcomes and wraparound services. I'm a strong component of a 4x4 schedule. I was not at first as a teacher because I didn't know how to teach in it. And I needed to be taught how to strengthen my instructional practices as a teacher. Once you know, you do better. This is about kids and this is also about adults. So once we can get that umbrella
Time.
to
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Harris Mohammed.
Thank you, Dr. Harris Mohammed.
You're
And
welcome.
I'll say this before, I can vividly remember in 2021, I was a middle school director at the time, but of course I would actually listen to the conversations about the 4x4. And I remember Dr. Bell and Sharita Sears brought the idea up, and Dr. Bell, I think, used it in Petersburg. And from there was kind of like a split decision about whether the 4x4 would work. But Superintendent Cameron, I think, can attest, when I took the role in 22, 23, we were all in the cafeteria and literally said, do you know how hard it is to get 10 principals to be aligned? We said, before we leave today, we're going to make a decision about whether we live with the 4x4 and make adjustments, or whether we just stay the path of the traditional schedule that we had. And they all agreed that we would actually, and all 10 were in alignment, but of course we talked about the adjustments around the flexibilities. We agreed on the flexibilities. I have not heard a complaint from one principal since we have had that conversation in 22, 23.
Thank you. Ms. Rizzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I guess I'll be the fly in the ointment. I don't like 4x4 schedules at all.
Okay.
In fact, I left K-12 teaching when my district went to a 4x4, largely because I think I consider a lot of my success as a teacher is because it's based on the fact that I build very strong, deep relationships with my students. In fact, I'm still very much in touch with most of them. It feels like most of them. And that was built over a year of consistently seeing them 3 times a week, for example, because we were on AB schedules. When we moved to 4x4s, I felt that they left me too early. I didn't have a chance to build that kind of long-standing relationship that then, you know, really helped me at the end of the year get them prepared for SOLs. And I always had very strong SOL scores, and so when the district I was with moved to 4x4, I moved to VCU, where then I started teaching students 50 minutes 3 times a week, which was very much like what I feel all year long. At VCU, I had a course that was 2 semesters, and so I got to spend time with a spiral curriculum, right, where we do the same kind of thing, but only on a deeper level the second semester. So I would love to hear more feedback from our schools about, you know, fresh feedback, like a new, I don't know if you want to do a survey or how you want to do it, but I would really like to hear more about this, because I do hear some people, I hear feedback from people who are not necessarily a fan or not necessarily fans. So I'm sorry, I want to see more data. I want to see more data that clearly draws a line from the success to the 4x4 so that we weed out any other commingling factors. Because I see some benefits in seeing students all year long.
And so can I also say that I was a middle school principal, not a high school principal, but also was not a fan of the double block schedule when I became a middle school principal. But when I saw the results of kids in reading and math and science and history, I immediately became a fan. And also with the 4x4, I think the other piece is, you know, as a district of improvement, the research shows that it's a really good fit for us. But I do believe, I mean, I don't know if I'll be here 5 years from now, like when we actually stabilize and get to where we need to be, I think every year we should provide some flexibility to schools as long as they have the complement. But I think right now we have to mandate some things because we are a division of improvement, and so many of our schools need to get to the place where, as you spoke to, where we're at the state average, right, or above the state average. And so just from the research and just from my professional opinion, I think the 4x4 is a really good fit, but everybody's not a fan, and we'll be happy to actually get some feedback.
Thank you. Mr. Hedgepath?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. I really appreciate the conversation, and I am probably more aligned with Ms. Rizzi on this one as well, and I've heard a number of concerns about the 4x4 particularly from the 4th district. And the data, like the 3.35, like that doesn't to me equal necessarily fully satisfied. So I do appreciate that we have a common framework of the 4x4, and that especially since you're allowing for the nuances between the schools and for some principal autonomy when it comes to dual enrollment courses, which I totally support bringing back into the school as well. But also the fixed block for the AP, because I am an AP teacher and I have many times taught AP in the fall for a semester and have had to wait to have my students tested in May, and that's really difficult to do. And to Dr. Harris Muhammad's point earlier about the 90-minute class period, that is difficult for teachers to teach without training, additional professional development. And also, I read recently that Gen Z now has a record 8-second attention span. 8 seconds. So 90 minutes, is concerning, and I can see it still being powerful if chunked properly, if planned properly, where there's a variety of activities, as long as there isn't the sage on the stage for 90 minutes. The other piece, oh gosh, I almost lost it. Oh, I'm sorry. For our content areas that are really dependent upon skill building, like our math and our language classes, if a student is on a 4x4, they may not have a math class, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Like in the spring, and then they may not have one in the fall the next year. So they may have gone, from the fall of 25 to the spring of 27 to having a math class or having a language class. And so that to me is really concerning about this continual practice of skill building, particularly in language and math, but in all of our content areas. So not sold on the 4x4, but I do understand that it also doesn't need to be the binary of, if it's not the 4x4, then it needs to be the AB rotating schedule, right? Maybe there's a third option also.
Yeah, and we kind of do the third option. We do the 4x4 with platooning, and platooning just means that you can have year-long courses if you feel the need, and most of those are AP based on the course. But you also raise a good point. We had to do a lot of training, and it's not here because this was from a curriculum lens, but we've done a lot of training with our school counselors on how to schedule kids. And of course, they know what the prerequisites are because they can look in the program of studies. But again, we have to ensure that school counselors give the right guidance. I hate to use that term because they don't like that term, but give the right guidance in terms of like what classes are fit for you this semester and following semester. So we've done a lot of work with them in the secondary, post-secondary department. And so I think we've come a long way as relates to scheduling. And also, I think back to the point that you made, I remember one of the first tasks that I was given VDO East and us to report, we didn't have 94-minute blocks because remember they had seat time, right? Back in the day, our classes were 70 minutes, but we weren't meeting the seat time requirements. And that was the easiest thing to fix because we got slapped on the hand for not having 94 minutes. And so we went back to make the adjustment. But also, I think Cassandra Bill will talk about how we use the 90 minutes is very, very creative and impressive in my opinion.
Thank you. Ms. Burke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was not in favor of the 4x4 schedule at all because I'm a relationship type person, want to nurture, as Ms. Rizzi was speaking. But after observing and seeing that at the end of the day, it does benefit our students, getting more coursework in, being in a different place where they would otherwise get to the end of the school year and find out they didn't have ample credits to go on as they thought they had. My only question is, I really would like to see the opportunity for the arts. You only have band a half a semester, half a year or whatever. It's not unless you meet after school, which all schools are not privy to do that. But I really would like to find a creative way, maybe financially. Is Mr. Cooper still here? Okay, financially, to
Why,
look,
yes, he is.
look at a way by, he moves seats, okay. To look at a way by which students can have those opportunities because, as Mr. Hedgepath just stated, 8 seconds for that generation, but you have to change, you have to switch up, you have to move around, just can't stay still. So how do we get the arts included? Because we have some very talented students, but it may take more than a few months, couple of months to, 4 months for them to get those opportunities that they need. Not unless you're in the position, and our stronger arts programs in the city, students meet after school, but everybody isn't privy to do that. So.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll work with Christy Jo and her team, come up with some solutions to the arts. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Farouk?
Mr. Jefferson, I really respect and appreciate that we have to make tough choices with limited resources. And so when we do that, there are always, right, you increase something over here, you lose something somewhere else. So in that spirit, I respect and appreciate that we are all constantly wrestling with this. So far, I like the 4x4 schedule. I like the results we're seeing. I think I'm grateful that we're pushing and trying new things to really better serve our students. But in that spirit, I do want to share just some feedback I got from one teacher about the 4x4 schedule. This teacher did acknowledge that there were many benefits, but there was one quirk that she saw. She says that a lot of students go through something major causing them to have a bad semester. On a 4x4, they can't always recover from that because a bad semester is an entire failed class. There are also many extracurriculars that require more than one semester of a particular GPA to be eligible. And in some cases, that high school may only offer 3 semesters of that particular course, meaning that it only goes up 3 levels. And so students sometimes can't have a single bad semester or even a bad quarter and still be eligible for those extracurriculars. She says her kids are dealing with housing instability, parentification, guardians passing away, and all kinds of serious hardships, and having one bad 9 weeks or one bad semester could preclude them from some of these enrichment opportunities. So I just wanted to pass that along as some feedback as we continue to monitor and track how this works. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, and I appreciate that feedback. And one of the focuses this year is around sense of belonging and self-efficacy. And I think that will help our students as it relates to the support systems. For example, the other 2 things we put in place is one of our graduation strategies. We have this thing called the Vault, right? We're actually tracking our students from 9th to 12th grade. We're supporting them. We had the staggered start, right? We're supporting them in 9th grade and wrapping our arms around them so that we can preclude those things from happening, not the social things that we can't control, but like how do we help them be successful and resilient, even with the challenges in place, but everybody has to be working in concert. And so I think a lot of those, the graduation meetings that we've had with school teams, we're focusing on 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. You you talk to a counselor and a principal now, they can actually tell you about a kid, and not just they need X amount of credits, but they know the child's backstory. And so that has been a huge focus for us. And I think sense of belonging, the other pieces around, we're trying to figure out how to get better with advisory and soft skills. We have Avid in some of our schools where that will help students be resilient and help students study better and prepare better. Studying is probably old school now, but just to give them the soft skills to be more resilient and more successful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, if there's nothing to pull out of other informational items, somebody has closed session. Ms. Ricard? Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quick, there was just one thing I wanted to bring up about the sex ed curriculum.
Okay.
Which I appreciate that it was shared, because I know we had received questions about it from community members and constituents. I actually had a PE teacher email me about it and really expressed a lot of gratitude for the support they've been given in teaching sex ed, but also admitting that there's still just not a discomfort, but being unsure about saying the right thing, teaching it in the right way. And I know when we got an email update earlier tonight, it was about maybe talking with the health district and bringing nurses back in to teach. And I guess I just wanted to voice my support, and if there's anything I can do to facilitate having nurses come back in. I think it just brings a different lens to it when nurses are teaching sex ed. It also allows consistency of the curriculum across all our schools, which is so important for our students. Won't tell you about my high school experience, where if you had one PE teacher, you got one view of sex ed, and if you had the other one, you were pretty much just taught abstinence, which we know is not the way to teach sex ed. So I just wanted to like publicly voice, if there's anything I can do to support nurses coming in, I am happy to do that.
Yep, and I will say that I've learned the history. The Richmond Department of Health used to actually do the education piece. However, I believe after COVID, the funds ran out, and also they just took a different approach. And so we have taken it upon ourselves and actually partnered to provide some training for our health and PE teachers. But we also are having conversations with some external partners now to see if they can actually support us. And so we will continue to have those conversations to see if we can find the right fit so we can enhance our curriculum. Because I do believe, based on, and again, I haven't, based on the feedback that I've been given, is that we provided a lot of training for them to be successful with implementation. But again, no enhancement doesn't hurt, right? And specifically for people who are professionals and this is their skill set and this is what they do all day. So I'll be happy to give an update once we talk to external partners to figure out who can help us, and they don't cost.
Dr. Harris
Yeah,
Muhammad.
very quickly, to that point, we just want to make sure that within their job, just skill, like what school counselors can do 20% of the time has changed. So we want to make sure we pull, as you're going to look, what the current statement and code is with nurses. Because a certain amount of time has to be spent in the clinic with students. So that idea is great. I just want to make sure we are within the realm of doing that. So that's a great, I love that.
Ms. Ricard?
And I wasn't even necessarily thinking about school nurses, but I was more just thinking nurses through the health
Richmond
department.
Yep.
So, but
Yeah, they provided
that's another opportunity.
All hearts and minds clear, as my mom used to say.
All right.
All right.
Madam Chair, I move that the school board of the city of Richmond convene in closed session One, to discuss the performance and complaint of a central office employee, the performance evaluation of 2 central office employees, and the hiring of potential candidates for a central office position, as well as to consult with legal counsel regarding the same issues as authorized by VA Code 2.2-3711A1 and A8, and 2, to consult with legal counsel concerning legal issues impacting school board's resolutions as authorized by VA Code 2.2-3711A8.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Ricard and seconded by Mr. Percival. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Percival.
Yes.
Ms. Ricard.
Yes.
Mr. Farouk.
Yes.
Mr. Hedgepeth.
Yes.
Ms. Rizzi. Dr. Harris Mohammed.
Yes.
Ms. Burke.
Yes.
Mr. Jafari. Ms. Fernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes.